Hi, this is Roger Moore, and you're listening to James Bond Radio.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to James Bond Radio. This is episode 205, would you believe? 205. With me today is the amazing Mr., or should I say Agent, Dan Gayle. Agent Gayle, how are we today?
Hello, Chris. I'm good, thank you. Am I amazing? Is that official now?
I'd say you probably... I'd say that's part of your code name, yeah.
All right, I'm not going to argue. We'll go with that. Thank you.
Brilliant stuff. That's okay, you're welcome. So today we're going to be doing the James Bond 25-day challenge. Now, what do you know about this so far? Obviously, this came out, I think it was last year maybe, or the year before. And we heard quite a few things. Obviously, Tom and Brian did an episode on it last year or the year before. And quite a few people on all the social medias were putting their answers to this 25-day challenge. Did you participate at all, or is it something that you saw? Had you heard of it, or is this completely fresh and new for you?
This is something I've seen other people do on Twitter, yes, but I've not really done it myself. I don't have the patience for that sort of thing, and I don't really go on Twitter every single day religiously, so I would miss them. But it's always interesting, watching, seeing other people's results, and this is why I like the interviews that you do for the birthday episodes, when you're asking the same questions to different people, getting back the answers, the different answers, the controversial answers. All that fascinates me. So when you ask fans 25 specific questions, you're always going to get some nuggets of goodness come back.
Definitely. Yeah, I like you. I like the way that you said that. There's always a little bit of controversy, always a little bit of a debate going on, but everyone's opinion is valid. And I wonder today if there'll be things that we'll agree on, or perhaps things that will be completely at opposite ends of the spectrum. Which will be interesting to find out. I definitely know the answers to some of these questions for you. At least I think I do. But there are some that I've got no idea whatsoever.
Yeah, I hope they're not too predictable. I hope I'm not wearing the answers on my sleeve already. But yes, in some cases, if you think that's going to be my answer, it probably already is.
Okay. So should we dive in? Or before we dive in, just got to say a quick message to all the listeners. So if you want to come and listen, we are on all the major listening, I was going to say devices, not really devices, are they? Like all your social medias. We're on Spotify, we're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, on iTunes. If you can come and leave us a review, that'd be fantastic. As you can tell, Tom's way better at doing all this blurb, so I'll leave that to him. So yeah, we're on all the social medias. Come and find us, and hopefully you will enjoy it. So before we get started, should we listen to a little bit of theme tune?
I think we should. Can I press the button, please?
Let's do it.
My name's Bond. James Bond. Bond.
James.
Bond, what do you think you're doing?
Keeping the British end up, sir.
Welcome to James Bond Radio. News, reviews, and discussion of all things 007.
Lucy.
As you can see, I have no problem with female authority.
Oh, pipe down 007.
Do you expect me to talk?
No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to lie.
Right then, Agent Gayle, the James Bond 25-day challenge. Are you ready?
Yes, I am. I've been to the toilet and I've got a drink here, so I'm ready to go.
Right.
This is not.
That's sounding very confident there.
I haven't just weed in this glass. In case that's what it sounds like.
If you have it, you're very well hydrated, I would say. But there we go. So on to question one. Agent Gayle, what is your favourite James Bond? Your favourite actor to have played Bond?
Oh, I go first, all right.
Or who is?
Well...
Yeah, let's take it in turns.
Is it... yes, it's Timothy Dalton, but at the same time, I wouldn't metaphorically kick any of them out of bed. You know, it's if whoever was playing it, I wouldn't go, oh, I'm not watching this one because it's X, Y, or Z, because
yeah,
they're all amazing and they all bring something different to it. So yeah, but if I had to cast my own film, I would have Tim.
And what is it about Tim? Because I know you're a big Tim fan. You always have been. Huge Tim fan, and I think Tim's gotten a lot of I was going to say support, but it sort of within the Bond fan community, the sort of love for Tim has grown quite a lot, I would say, in more recent years compared to perhaps when his films were out, or even before Pierce came back. So what is it for you then about Tim that makes him such a good Bond?
It was the first one I saw in the cinema, and it made a big impression. I think that's all it was. You're
Which
right.
of the two?
The Living Daylights was the first one. Yeah,
that is an amazing film to watch.
Had I seen another one, it may have been that. I know Tom is very paternal towards GoldenEye for the same reasons, and I know there are people that love License to Kill for the same reason. It's just whichever one made you fall in love with that series. Is usually the one that you saw in the cinema that sort of seared itself onto your back of your eyeballs.
Now that's interesting, because I was I say close. I was probably not close at all, but I remember trying to sneak into a cinema with my friend to watch License to Kill when I think we were both about 9, maybe 10. Yeah, we would have been 9 or 10. 9 we would have been, and clearly, obviously, it was a 15. And we managed to get through the front door, and we crossed the. Obviously, we bought a ticket for a different film, thinking, "Oh yeah, here we go." And then we kind of made a beeline for the License to Kill door, and unfortunately, they seemed to have these guards there. It was almost like, they had their own Dario on the door who was trying to scare us off. So I'm afraid we didn't even get to see any film that day because we were told to. Make a sharp exit out of the door, which was a bit of a shame. But I wonder if that had been my first cinema experience, whether how much of an effect that would have had, particularly that type of film as well for someone who's, I guess, 9 years old. Yeah,
that's quite a brutal one to watch, really, isn't it? I mean, were you watching that kind of thing anyway at that time? Were you watching Die Hard and Lethal Weapon on VHS, or is that something you try to do when you're a bit older?
Probably for me it was a little bit older. I still maybe 11, 12, 13 more so than 9 or 10 perhaps. I definitely wasn't one of those, because everyone had a friend, didn't they, when you were back at school, had a mate or two you'd go around their house because you knew all the cracking 18 action films were being played, and it was fine to watch whatever you wanted. They'd have it on VHS and they'd stick it on no matter what, and everyone probably had a friend like that, and I certainly did. But I wasn't one of those who was able to watch that sort of film back in the day at that age. Anyway,
we had kids in our school who'd actually seen RoboCop when most people were not old enough to see it, or had friends who could actually get hold of a copy of it, or could buy the tape of it, and they would be doing all the sound effects. All the Ed 209 sound effects in the classroom, there was. I think License to Kill is of that ilk, isn't it? It's very much a sort of a brutal 80s sort of, very very violent, very dark kind of film. And it was riding that sort of wave of popularity at the time. And if you had seen that, I think it might have affected you.
Definitely, yeah.
Quite badly.
Who knows? Yeah, quite badly, probably. So I wanted to ask you, along the lines of the James Bond actors, obviously Tim is your top, and that's fair enough. And I like, obviously, you've got a bit of love for each of them, which is great. Has there been any Bond actor that's kind of risen up in the ranks, so to speak, or your perception of them has changed for the better or perhaps the worse? Over the years, or have they all remained pretty steady?
Well, as a kid, it was very popular to say, that one with Lazenby in it wasn't very good. I think everybody... I mean, that's probably the same for Tim, isn't it? At the time, most people were going, "Oh, it's not very good. He's not very good at the jokes." Alan Partridge refers to them as the Welsh ones. and they're the ones you can skip when you're doing a Bond marathon. But no, I don't think I would keep those opinions anymore. And I love Majesties. It's an awesome film, and I don't care if Lazenby's not all that he hasn't quite got the acting chops to pull that role off at times, but in other bits he surprises you, and is more than perfect. So I think all of them have been perfect for the role. It's not really the actors that would let me down. It's the scripts. If there are certain films that I watched at the time, I went, oh dear, that's not very good, and I wish they'd written this instead, or I wish it feels like some of them have been written by too many cooks, spoiling the broth. And they're the ones that sort of remain lower down for me, but it's not usually the actors themselves. No. What about you? If you were going to pick a Bond,
for me it's an interesting one, this, because I think my favourite has never changed ever since day dot. I've had my favourite Bond actor, and that's never changed. But the ones underneath that specific actor have changed places in terms, because if you're ranking them from like your favourite to your worst, it gets a bit tricky, doesn't it? Because you're like, well, it doesn't feel right. Like with everyone said before, they're like your children. You love them all. On certain days you might want to you might prefer some than others, but all in all, they've all brought something to the role, as has often been said, and they really have. It's not just they all have. So for me, Connery is the one I grew up on, weirdly, even though I grew up in the 80s, because we had a load of VHS Bonds, and they were pretty much all the Connerys. My dad's Scottish, so we used to watch the Connery Bonds way more than any of the others. So for me, he's always been up there.
No, that's interesting. Did you have the retail boxes, the big ones, or did you have the smaller ones with the blue spines or the silver spines? Or were they all just taped off TV? Yeah, well, okay. With all the best bits missing.
Yeah. Well, this is it. I remember watching Diamonds Are Forever years and years later, and seeing the bikini scene in the pre-titles. I was like, what? I've never seen Bond do that before, and countless other things. So some were original sort of official VHSs, and some were just TV sort of copies. But yeah,
it was the lift fight with with Peter Franks. That was always the bit that was cut to pieces when it was shown on TV, because there was shards of glass and all sorts of nastiness going on there, and it made no sense at all. It really didn't. That and You Only Live Twice. Parts of every time someone brought out some sort of blade or throwing star or samurai sword, it was gone. It just wasn't there. So watching that for the first time on VHS was a revelation. It was a whole sequence. The entire bit where they go through the sort of Japanese Q lab, and they show off all the rocket guns, and they show off all the cigarettes with missiles in them. None of that was in the film. It was all cut out because it was just too violent. And so when Bond pulls out a cigarette with a missile in it later on, and it saves his life, you think, where did he get that from? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
But so Connery for you, and also would you who would you say was bottom of the? Is there one of these questions? These questions are all favourite, aren't they? These are all very positive. So
some people have mentioned their worst within these. I think worst is tricky. I think for me, what I will say is that over Craig, I've been hugely impressed with. I think Lazenby gets way too much slack. I'm a big fan of Lazenby, but I think the person that perhaps when I was younger I wasn't as, not that I wasn't keen on him, but the person I think that's risen the most for me is actually Roger Moore. I think I've grown to appreciate how good he is in every single film, because I don't think he gets enough credit, because everyone says, oh, he's just doing the eyebrows or he's just having a laugh. But there's some amazing moments in his films, from the light-hearted all the way through to the really, really sort of dark and nasty almost.
Yeah.
And I think and you see he's vulnerable, and you see, okay, he might not be the best Bond out the bunch for fighting, but he still puts everything into the role, I think. So he's the one for me that's gone sort of almost up to Connery levels.
That's cool. Yes, I mean, you can say that he had the most sort of light-hearted films, but he never gave a light-hearted performance. There was always something pretty dark in every one of them. There was a moment where his character,
definitely,
the script gave him a chance to actually do something pretty dark and brutal, whether that was kicking a car off the cliff or the scene in Man with the Golden Gun, which I still find difficult to watch, which is him in the hotel room. And that was on TV again the other night, and loads of bits were missing. Lots of sort of one-liners here and there were cut out. But the bit where he's slapping somebody around in the hotel room, it was all there. No problem with that at all. But you can't have any kind of nudity.
How times have changed.
Yes, yeah. Anyway,
so Chew Me, was that?
I gave up at that point. I couldn't be bothered to watch any more of it. But every time there was something even slightly suggestive, that was gone. I'm surprised they still show them on TV. I don't know who watches them because everyone's got them on.
No, I guess the thing is, if you're doing something like whatever work or whatever you're doing, but you want something on the background, and it's on the TV, then it's probably quite a good thing to have. But I just can't watch it with the adverts. Not sit down to watch it properly if it's got adverts, because why bother when you've got everything? But speaking of the films, and on to question 2, if you had to choose one, what would you say is your favourite Bond film?
I would say it is, and everyone sing along, it is The Living Daylights. But I would also say, now hang on, these are all favourite, aren't they? They're not best, because I don't think it's the best film in the series.
They're not best, they are favourite.
Yeah.
They are favourite, yeah.
I think the best film in the series is probably Majesty's, on equal part with Casino Royale. They are both blinding films. They really are. They sort of go beyond being can you say just Bond films? I think they are actually they are classic films. They really are very, very, very important films because of what they achieve. Majesty's is one of the first modern day action movies. If you look at the Michael Bay sort of action films that are, everything's cut so fast, you never see the same camera angle twice. And everything is sort of 2 or 3 seconds, and then you move on to the next thing. The fight scenes are brutal and outrageous. I can't think of an action film that has that kind of pacing before Majesty's. I'm sure there is one, but they're usually a little bit sort of slower than that. But that went up to 5th gear very quickly, and after that, other films started to do the same sort of thing. And Casino Royale was just brilliant because it took everything and shook it all up, and when it spilled out, it was 666. Yeah, I really, really enjoyed that. But I would say Living Daylights is my favourite because it's just a nostalgic thing. It's the one that I saw, and I just loved it. It has flaws. I know it has flaws. Brilliant. But what about you? What would you say was your favourite film?
Well, you've kind of stolen my thunder a little bit, because I have 2 films which I would say are my favourite, which also might be deemed as the best by some. It's strange. It's Majesty's and Casino for me. I can watch them back all the time. I just think they're amazing. I think they're the best in terms of the script, the rounded characters, the action, the Bond girls. I think they both have so much going for them. But they chop and change. So for ages, Majesty's was my favourite, and then Casino Royale, and then Majesty. So I really don't know. So basically, if I can put those 2 on a tier level above the other films, just for now, I'll put those to one side. Out of the rest, things start to get tricky. I really couldn't bring myself to select a favorite out of the rest. It's really hard. Again, if I'm looking at a film recently that has gone up in my estimation, you'll probably laugh at this. Loads of people listening will laugh at this, but I absolutely love Moonraker. I really, really dig Moonraker. Like this, you talk about pacing. Moonraker is one of the best paced Bond films out there. It just hits and it moves from scene to scene, and I think Roger's brilliant in it. I think the way that there's so many attempts on Bond's life is fantastic. Hugo Drax for me is one of the best Bond villains. I love it. Obviously it gets a bit crazy when it goes out to space, and Bond and Jaws and Dolly is a bit, you know, there's that scene as well. So like you said about Daylight, it's not perfect, but there is a lot to love about Moonraker. So that is one for me that is really, really sort of above what other people would consider perhaps an inferior Bond film. What about you? Is there any film like that for you?
I've always thought My Man with the Golden Gun was a little bit weak, but watching it again, little bits of it again the other week, I think it's not the script's fault. I always thought it was the script that was a bit weak. I think it's the direction that's a little bit weak. I think maybe Guy Hamilton had burnt himself out at that point. He'd done 3 in a row. It was his 4th. He was probably just a bit fed up of Bond at that point. I'm not sure. But I don't think it's the script's fault. The lines are very good. I could do with it. I mean, isn't it weird when you look back at the film and you think at the end of it, you think there was no one in that film. There was like 10 people in the entire film.
Particularly at the end.
Yeah, the villain's got one person in charge of the entire base, whereas, you know, You Only Live Twice or Spy Who Loved Me, there's an entire army of people. And there's even the guy in the opening scene where Bond's in the office. You've got Calthorpe and Tanner. Bill Tanner.
Tanner, indeed. Yeah, the very first depiction of Bill Tanner, isn't it?
Bill Tanner has all the lines, all 2 of them. Calthorpe doesn't say a thing in that opening scene, and then later on we never see Tanner again. It's Calthorpe who does all the dialogue. They could easily have been the same character, easily, and yet they had to stretch it out to make it look like there were more people in the cast, so they split the dialogue between 2 actors. As it was, M could have said all that. It probably wasn't really necessary. So I think, the script certainly needed a bit of work. It felt like it was a little bit rushed, but I enjoyed listening to it again the other week. I thought it was good fun, and I never really paid that much attention to it before. It was always one of the weaker ones.
Interesting. So, what about question 3 then?
Oh, blimey!
Who is your favourite Bond girl? It's tricky, this one, isn't it?
Well, look, the young me would have a different answer to the older me, and the movie critic.
That's okay. Let's go with that.
Would
then
have a different answer again.
Let's have a young Dan. We'll have a movie critic Dan, and we'll have current Dan, and see what their 3 choices are.
I'd love to say Tracy, because I think she is the one of the most rounded, no pun intended, characters. But even then, I still think there's moments where I'm confused as to what her motivations are. I don't fully understand why she is the way she is at the start of the film. It's never really properly explained. Said that she went off the rails a bit, but she seems fine. Is she really off the rails? I mean, she wants to kill herself, and within 24 hours, she seems absolutely fine. So
is that because she slept with Bond or not?
Well, who knows? I don't know. That's not properly explored, is it? But you kind of just go with it. So I don't know. And also, I think Bond would find her very hard work, because she is obviously. She's all over the place, really, internally. Her sort of mental stability is not entirely reassured. As it is later on in the film, she seems absolutely fine, but she really does need help at the start of the film. So I think Bond would probably not want to be involved, but according to the script, he is. So yeah, I'd say she was a very interesting character. But God, I love Aki. She's so cool. She's just cool, and she's beautiful, and there's not enough of her, and that's probably the reason why I wish there was more of her. They took her away while we still wanted more, left us wanting more.
That's a great answer. That is a great answer, because Aki doesn't often come up. I know our music of Bond JW is a huge fan of Aki. He loves it. I think Aki's his favorite as well. And you're right, because she can kick ass when she saves Bond's life on a few occasions. Obviously in the Toyota, picks him up, and she can handle herself as well. Like you said, she's a secret agent for the Japanese Secret Service, and they get on well. Bond and her, I can see them getting on well. Yeah, I think Aki's great. So okay, here's a question: Do you think it would have worked if Aki had not died midway in the film and she was the main Bond girl that continued, and we didn't get Kissy Suzuki, or do you think there needed to be that sort of split there? Is it better because her death scene is amazing? Aki's death scene is great. Would you remove that death scene to keep her in for the rest of the film, or not?
I don't know. I wouldn't want to rob the audience of that little bit of. That's another thing that makes her character so good is the fact that we really care about her. When she does die, we are quite moved by that, and the music is really good as well at that point. Bond doesn't seem to show any. He shows about 25 seconds of remorse, and then he moves on to the next thing. But you could argue that's what the character in the book would have done. Cinematically, I think they probably should have just kept the character going right to the end. She would have been amazing. She would have been much more memorable to the average member of the audience, cinema-going audience, had the role not been split into two. But I would have kept the character as one. I think that would have given it a bit more sort of continuity throughout. Yeah.
Excellent.
Well, I don't know. So if you were going to go for a Bond girl, would you go for someone that you would? Are you going for someone that is character, or are you going for someone that is glamour?
Well, there's.
Are you thinking with your head or lower down?
Or my other head. I think. I'm going to think with both. No, so I think there's a couple of Bond girls who I think are amazing, absolutely amazing. The one that I've mentioned a few times before is a femme fatale, and that is of course Fiona Volpe. I think her character is brilliant. It's absolutely incredible. I think the way that she sort of seduces Duval, and she's the one that's kind of behind the operation. The way that she kills Lippy with a rocket firing BSA Lightning motorbike. Obviously she's an assassin for Spectre. She wants to kill Bond. The way that after they sleep with one another, that whole time she wants to kill him, and it's the first one. Normally he sleeps with someone and then they immediately repent and return to the side of right and virtue, but not her. And I think she is fantastic as a character, and So she's definitely one, and I think as well for the modern day, I think Vesper was a brilliant character. I think Vesper actually does divide quite a few people from what I've seen. I think she's a stunning actress, and I think the character is great. Some of the plots within Casino Royale, it wasn't necessarily difficult to follow, but there were some complexities to what was going on, and which involved her character obviously. But I think, as an actress, Eva Green absolutely nailed that role. And I feel, I mean, this might be blasphemous to the Bond fan community, but just my opinion, I feel that I felt the Bond and Vesper relationship stronger than Bond and Tracy. I think because, Bond and Tracy, they have that sort of montage, which is great. And then he goes to Peace Gloria and sleeps with 3 other women. And you kind of forget about Tracy. And it's not until she comes back on the ice rink that he suddenly remembers her. And I think with Vesper, she is permanently on Bond's mind from the moment they have that exchange in the train carriage. She doesn't leave his mind until the very end of the film. And even then, obviously, she's there. And that the twist is fantastic. And obviously, that death scene at the end is haunting, absolutely haunting. So for me, I think ultimately she would be my Bond girl, but Fiona Volpe as a femme fatale is right up there as well.
Okay, well that's the books coming into play there as well, because obviously those films followed the books, or at least the female characters' journeys quite faithfully. And in Majesty's the book, Bond does meet Tracy, fall for her, and then have to plough his way through several people in Piz Gloria to get the information that he needs. Actually, probably only one, but in the films by that time, I think
he's got up his game. It
was cool. Yeah, it was cooler to have as many people as possible. So so the scripts probably followed that, but also the scripts by You Only Live Twice had this sort of formula, didn't they, that they felt they had to stick to. And Roald Dahl had said that there was a formula that he wanted to stick to, but that formula only really seemed to come into play in Thunderball, the film before, which was there are 3 girls. The first one is the villain and dies. The first one is the hero and dies. Second one is the villain and dies. The third one remains for the rest of the film. It didn't have to stick to that formula if it was so newly minted. I think he could have probably just avoided it and kept Aki alive for the whole thing. And no one's really followed that formula since. So it was unnecessary.
It's a good point, actually.
Yeah.
I really feel like we need to get Roald Dahl so you can speak to him from beyond the grave and just say, come on, why didn't you keep Aki in there a bit longer?
Well, there's many questions I'd like to ask him. That would be one of them. If you were going to go with, can I move on to number 4?
Yes, please do. Yeah.
Okay. Favorite villain. What would your favorite villain be? And what defines villain? Because
I think it's got to be mate. Have got more than one. Indeed,
they've got more than one, but some of them maybe. Spoiler alert for The World Is Not Enough. Is Elektra a villain, or is she the main girl?
I would say in that circumstance, I would call Renard more of a henchman in a weird way, and I'd say Elektra's the main villain of the piece. Right. But she can still be a Bond girl and a villain of the piece, obviously, at the same time. But for me, it's tricky. The easy option for me is to say Goldfinger, because I think it's just the fact that it's greed. It's down to greed. That's all it is. And that one sort of overpowering emotion that he has rules his life. Obviously, his love for colour. It's not greed for money, it is greed for gold. But that's such a powerful thing. And the moments when he breaks into Fort Knox and he sees those gold bars, and you can just tell that all he wants to do is run over and rub them all over him and stuff like that. But obviously he wants to set a bomb off, and that's not going to happen. I think he, for me, is the number one villain. But equally, I think there are other ones which I'd like to give a shout out. I mentioned Drax earlier, and I think he's very underrated. I love Hugo Drax as a villain. I think Zorin is incredible as well, like just a pure psychopath. And I know recently we had a lot of love on the listener episodes for Le Chiffre, and again, I think Le Chiffre is great. I think he's a top-notch villain. So yeah, I think ultimately I'm gonna Sanchez as well. He was absolutely fantastic. He's probably, in fact, it's so hard, isn't it? I think my top 5 would include Sanchez, Zorin, Drax, maybe Le Chiffre and Goldfinger. But then I feel like I've left out a Blofeld. But anyway, so ultimately I'm going with Goldfinger, but I wanted to throw a few other names in the hat just in case.
That's okay. That's allowed. I mean, he did set a trend as well, didn't he? He came along quite early on in the series, and that's the one that was. That's the one that was going to make a return in early drafts of Diamonds Are Forever. He was going to come back, and that film has got a lot to answer for most of the other films throughout the 70s and 80s. Was sort of copying that formula,
and that's it. So what about you, villain wise?
I like the crazier ones. I like the ones that are a little bit twitchy and a little bit sort of you don't quite know what's going to happen next, and for that reason I have a lot of love for Maximilian Largo from Never Say Never Again. There is something undeniably toady and slimy about that characterization.
Unhinged as well.
He's unhinged. Yes, he's as his plan starts to unravel, he becomes more and more desperate and a little bit unpredictable. He's clearly in a horrendous relationship with Domino. That was hinted at in the earlier Thunderball as well, but in this one you can really see she should not be in that relationship at all. And it's only now I'm older I'm actually looking at it and going, oh yes, I know people that are in relationships like that. I've heard of people that are in relationships like that. And it is terrifying, and so it's quite on the nose for that reason, that people do find themselves in strange relationships and they can't get out of them, and it takes someone like Bond to come along and sort it out. Not that he's
trouble is there's not enough Bonds in the world to
no, and not that he's a model citizen himself. He's hardly Mr. Perfect, is he? But yes, there's something about that Largo. I think he's he there's nothing, there's no sort of metal claws or steel teeth or anything like that. I think that he's just his thirst for power is greater than what his tiny little mind can handle. And you see him start to sort of unravel on screen. I think he's terrific. I wish he had a better sort of comeuppance.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because often Never Say Never is overlooked, and I think obviously we were talking about Bond girls. I think Fatima Blush is easily one of the best Bond girls in the series. I think she's fantastic. But Maximilian Largo, you're right, and he gets crazier and crazier as the film goes on. But you're right, the death, obviously Domino got him with a spear gun like Thunderball, but in not in the right sort of way, because it was kind of underwater, and it was almost like, oh, does that mean he's dead then? And it needed more, didn't it? It really needed more.
The earlier Thunderball improved upon. I can't remember how it ends in the novel, but I think it is all underwater, isn't it? I can't remember. So I suppose it was true to the source in that sense, and the 65 film improved on that. It added a really fast-paced fight scene at the end, and so that's got she gets the revenge, and the villain gets a nasty death, and he gets the comeuppance he deserves because he gets to look her in the eye. Well, he doesn't though, does he? It's in the back, but I like to think that I like to think that he
does turn around, doesn't he? Because he ends up falling on the wheel of the boat. So I think he looks at Bond, and then he turns around and kind of falls on the wheel. He's got to know
that it was her that did it. Yeah. That character is nasty in both of those iterations, but I particularly like Max.
Yeah. Fantastic. Okay, on to question number 5. What about henchmen? Who is your favourite henchman? Or henchwoman?
Yeah, Fatima Blush has got something to answer for, hasn't she? She's amazing. That film does the villains very well. I'm not so much of a fan of this sort of silent, tall, blonde villains, of which there are several. and there's a hint that there might be another one on the way. I'm not sure.
I don't know anything about the next one. Silence, please.
He may not be. Who knows? In these films, Bond himself has become a tall, silent, blonde henchman, hasn't he? Since 2005. Well, so. Yeah. Who knows? I haven't been following what's happening on this new film at all. I just occasionally see the odd picture pop up, and I see someone and think to myself, okay, well, they're clearly a villain, but they might not be. Who knows? So I can't. I don't think I've spoiled anything for you or for me there. I would probably go for the earlier films. I would go for the ones that were breaking new ground. I think I would go for Red Grant. Who is the ultimate tall, blonde, silent henchman? Because all the others have been trying to do. Yeah, just because he was the first, and all the others were sort of carbon copies of him, and you can see that. You can see that they are just trying to do the same thing again and again. But the first time they got it absolutely perfect. Robert Shaw is an incredible performer. Physically terrifying. You could see that he was in exactly the same shape that Connery was in. He could have snapped him in half if he wanted to. He could have just picked him up and snapped him like a twig. And yeah, he's terrifying. He's really, really scary. And also, if you've read the book, he is also a little bit unhinged. So if you've got that in the back of your head, if you're armed with that knowledge as well, that he used to go around doing crazy things at midnight to, killing animals and things just to satisfy the lust that he had in his mind. Yeah, he's really, really scary, and none of the other blonde, tall, silent henchmen have really sort of matched up to that.
No, that's I mean, Red Grant for me is incredible. I'm glad you said that, because when initially you said you weren't keen on any of the blonde, tall, sort of silent henchmen, I was like, really? Not even Red Grant? But obviously you mentioned him. Yeah, he's great. Robert Shaw, I think the character, and what I love about Red Grant is he's ahead of Bond the whole way through the film, pretty much. At the gypsy camp, he's the one that shoots a guy that's about to stab Bond. On the train, as an audience, we see that he is watching Bond, but Bond has no idea of him several times. We see him at the window. We see him when Bond is exchanging, the code word match and lighter and all that. And he's ahead of the game. And that's one of the few times, I think, where as an audience, we know more than Bond does. Because normally, obviously, in terms of plot, sometimes you know a bit more, but around specific characters, you'd kind of see as Bond sort of learns. But with Red Grant, he's always ahead of him. And you're right, I think he's incredible. I think, for me, the closest henchman to that, I mean, there have been some amazing ones. If you think about, obviously, Jaws is a classic. You've got Mayday, I think, is brilliant, absolutely so good. Xenia on the Top is great. You've got Tee and Baron Samedi from Live and Let Die. Has so many good ones. Winton Kid, Bambi and Thumper. There are a lot of really, really good henchmen. I think Hinks was decent as well. But the only other person that I'd put alongside Red Grant would probably be Oddjob for me. I just think that absolute loyalty to even allow himself to be locked inside the vault, knowing there's an atomic bomb in there, purely so his master's plan can work. That is the extreme sort of henchman of what they do. I know, obviously, his immense strength in crushing the golf ball and everything like that, and the flying hat. Obviously, he kills Tilly Masterson and he's spraying the gold paint. I think Oddjob is fantastic. So for me, it would be those two top tier, with Jaws possibly just behind them.
It's interesting, isn't it, watching Goldfinger? What kind of hold, then, do you think, what sort of emotional blackmail did Goldfinger have over Oddjob to make him so ridiculously faithful?
You know what? I think it's a different culture. I think the culture is doing the best job you can and being the best at that job, as opposed to doing it for money or doing it for gifts or anything like that. I think it's rather than having an emotional hold of him, because that you never see that. He's deadpan the whole way through the film, Odd Job, pretty much. I think it's purely because he is the best, chauffeur / bodyguard in the world, and this is how he proves it. And it's loyalty, it's honor. It's a bit kamikaze like with it. Obviously I know he's not Japanese, but that mentality of putting their body on the line for the greater good, and in his eyes Goldfinger is the greater good, so to speak. And I think that partnered alongside Goldfinger's greed and obsession for gold is what creates an unbelievable partnership for that film.
Villains with obsessions. That's what works really well, isn't it? And obviously they both had their own obsessions, being the best at what they do, and that probably. How far do you think that relationship went? Do you think Odd Job was being asked to do other sort of horrendous odd jobs around the house? No,
like
with
cleaning up the
Goldfinger.
laundry and doing the dishes.
Worse than that, you never know. Goldfinger was a big guy. There was a chance that he might have needed a hand in the shower, or maybe oh, I've dropped the soap again, Odd Job. Could you just come in here and could you do my back?
Yeah, there could be a bit of that. Or maybe he can't reach around to clean himself after being on the sit-down machine. So
a very odd job, isn't it? Yeah. That must be how he got the name.
It certainly is.
Yeah, nasty.
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, you're right. We'll have to write into Eon and ask them if that's the truth, or the Fleming estate, perhaps. We'll see what they say.
I think that's obsessed villains really do help sell it. If it's someone that doesn't seem at all bothered, you might argue the fella from Quantum of Solace is perhaps
Dominic Green.
Yeah, not that obsessed. I mean, he's quite unhinged, certainly, but he's too laid back by half to be
in comparison to some of the others.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So speaking of obsessed villains, the next question is, who is your favourite Blofeld? Now, do you see every incarnation of Blofeld as being obsessed, or are they all different? Do they all bring something different? And what is your favourite interpretation of the character?
The one I wish we'd seen more of is the Max von Sydow one. I think he would have had great potential if he'd been given... but he's sort of there as a token. I don't think he's actually really that important in the film. Yeah, that dialogue could have been given to anyone else, really. But isn't it funny that there were all these lawsuits about Eon saying you can't use the music, you can't use the gun barrel, you can't do anything that we invented for Thunderball. It's got to be the novel only, otherwise we'll sue you. But yet they still have a white cat, which is definitely not Fleming. That
wasn't in the novel, was it?
That's From Russia with Love, isn't it? And it's in Thunderball. So yeah, it's funny they got away with that. Maybe they just didn't know. I would say, I would like to have seen more of him, and I think that kind of far more human, perhaps. The more human Blofelds are better. I like the Telly Savalas one, who's like a big Greek doorman, isn't he? He's like a bouncer.
Bit of a brute.
Yeah, I do like that, if it has to be Blofeld, but they're not as obsessed. Perhaps they're far more human, so they're not as obsessed. And I really like the obsessed villains, so I guess Donald Pleasance is probably the most obsessed of all of them. Go with Pleasance, because he's just mad in a wonderful way. What about you?
He certainly is. I don't know. I might take a strange curveball on this and say that potentially, I don't know if it's my favourite, but the one that I want to give a shout out to
Charles
is the unseen Blofeld in From Russia with Love and Thunderball. Because it's that classic hidden villain, hidden organization, supreme power. You only need to see his hand push a few buttons and stroking a white cat, and this man is not to be reckoned with. And I think it just creates so much intrigue from having this interpretation. You're like, who is this guy? Who is he? And he's the head of the organization. I can't choose it as my favorite Blofeld because there's not enough to it, but I thought it's definitely worth bringing that interpretation of him, because I think it often goes overlooked again. So for me, out of the rest, it's always been out. It was Donald Pleasance for a long time. I think it's a classic Blofeld, the classic look. He is wild and maniacal in a way, and wants to start World War III and everything. But my love for the Telly Savalas Blofeld has grown a lot, and I think it's he's involved in the film a lot more in terms of screen time than probably any other Blofeld, I'd imagine. He gets involved, so he skis down with his goons as they chase Bond. He causes the avalanche. He obviously that bobsleigh fight I think is great. He's a nasty piece of work, and he gets involved. The only thing that I'm not overly bothered by with his character is his demands. So he's threatening the world with this virus Omega to basically cause sterilization through the Angels of Death. And what does he want? He wants to be called a count, and he wants his past crimes revoked, and that's it. And it's not as if the UN and everyone else is going to go, oh no, we're definitely going to risk this virus being spread to not do that. So that's the only thing. I wish he demanded a bit more, that version of Blofeld. What are your feelings on that?
That shows that his power, though, doesn't it? If in one film he's very close to starting World War III, and everyone was stepping up to that as if it was about to happen, and he caused it. That shows you how powerful he is. And if in the next film, he can ask for something really small and pathetic, but people still have to take him seriously, that does suggest that he's a very, you have to listen to him, because he's serious. He was certainly serious the time before. But then
that's a good point.
M says in that film, it's a very curious thing, snobbery. All it is he just wants to be seen as something more than he actually is. He wants to be given a title.
That's the obsession, isn't it? Right there. The obsession is snobbery. Before it was gold for Goldfinger, and now we've got snobbery. And actually, now that you point it out that way, that does add to his character, because that is what he's after is to be known as a right count. And I think I think you've won me over with that. So I'm going to go with Telly Savalas Blofeld as my answer for that one.
Yeah, there's certainly people in the real world that are obsessed with certain things that make them look and appear more powerful than they actually are. And so you think about, are the Bond films and the villains a bit over the top? And then you look at people that have appeared in the news recently. No, they're not really. They do exist, and they do make their way to the top. And they do make ridiculous demands of people, and they're obsessed with gold.
I'm not sure if you've heard of it, but in terms of psychopaths, they looked at the characteristics of a psychopath, or there's a study on it, and what roles, what jobs they tended to go for, and obviously, serial killer not being a job, but that is one of the ones. But being a CEO of a major corporation was right up there with all the similar attributes that a suicide killer has, from being on that similar spectrum. And if you think about it, the ruthlessness that these people need to get to the top of something like that you can see why there's a bit of a similar sort of plane going on.
Yeah.
So I think that side of things is quite interesting.
Just total
yeah.
determination.
So they're definitely out there.
And not taking no for an answer and not stopping until the job is done. Yeah. Ugh, it's terrifying. Anyway, we learn our lessons from that. We won't. So if you were going to be stuck on a desert island with a particular M, which one would it be?
Okay, so obviously this question is not what is my favourite M. It's if I was stuck with a particular M, who would it be? Well, it wouldn't be the M from Never Say Never Again, that's for sure, because he'd burn my ears off listening to him. On a desert island, do you know what? I think Judy would be nice on a desert island, because I think she'd want to look after you, make sure everything's okay and stuff like that, and I think she'd be good company. So from that aspect, although I mean Ray Fiennes would be pretty handy. I think he'd know his way around a desert island to find sort of set up shelters and find stuff, that sort of thing.
There's definitely
but my favourite M.
Isn't there? Yeah, he's got some sort of hidden past that we haven't really explored
the
yet.
army.
But
I wonder if that'll come out in the future films a bit more or not.
Don't know. Who knows? It's suggested that he was in Northern Ireland, wasn't he, for a bit, and he's done something, but we don't really know quite how in the field he was. But would that be your favourite then? Would Judy be your favourite?
No, my favourite is definitely, without a doubt, Bernard Lee. I mean, for me, none of the others come close. I think he epitomises the Fleming version of M. I think he looks the part. I think the way that his M, that relationship that he has with Bond, the chastising, but underneath there's the love for him, that he knows he is his best guy. I think it's so many scenes where it's amazing. There's obviously in Majesty's with the resignation scene and the letter and stuff like that is fantastic. I think the they're all great. Where in Thunderball, where he backs Bond up when he saw Angelo dead in Choblands, but even on when M and Bond get a bit testy with each other, there's something that I like about watching that. And I think no one pulls it off better than Bernard Lee. I think for if Fleming himself could have chosen a person to play M, no one else could have done it better than Bernard Lee. Yeah,
he was terrific. Again, he had the advantage of being first, but he absolutely nailed that. Well, I would probably choose the same, but Robert Brown is my Daylight's M, and he's actually pretty grumpy as well. And you know, he does the grumpy, and he does the pipe smoking, and he does the Bond, you're a scallywag, but I'm going to let you get away with it, like in Octopussy. Yeah, you know, that's government property now, and he gives a little smile.
That's an amazing scene.
You know, 20 seconds earlier he was shouting at him, and he was going, "Oh God, what am I going to do with this bloke?" And then suddenly, actually, you're really good. You're way ahead of me. And he's got that little twinkle in his eye. So he in the short time that he was playing M, which isn't really that long, it was only 3-4.
It's only 4 films, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think he made
that's it, 4 films.
Quite an impression. But he's a little bit too much like a teddy bear. And there's something quite sharp and pointy about Bernard Lee. And I think M needs to be sharp and pointy. So yeah, although I do quite like the one from Never Say Never Again. I think he is sort of comic relief in a way, isn't he? There's very few scenes where he's
come along, Bond.
Yeah, he's there to make the audience laugh a little bit, kind of like Hugh is in the other Bond films. But I think he's quite if he is there purely to be the authority figure that Bond rubs up against, then they've nailed that. You couldn't make someone that was more sort of pompous and annoying. And they've nailed that absolutely perfectly.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
Yeah,
from that side of things, definitely. I think what that relationship is missing is that underlying respect for each other, which the Bernard Lee has with his Bond, but I don't think that Edward Fox M has that with his Bond. Or if it is, then it's definitely not to that degree.
He does invite Bond to lunch at his club later on in the film, so there's a little bit of respect, but not much.
Oh yes, that's true. So what about question 8 then? What about Q? I mean, this one, I don't know if anyone would say anyone beyond Desmond. Obviously, John Cleese in a couple of films, and I think Ben Whishaw's been amazing, absolutely brilliant in the films that he's been in. But you can't overlook Desmond, can you?
No, I think I'd have to choose Desmond. I think most people probably would. But again, I really like Algernon. I think he's wonderful. And I think had he been given more films, I think he would have been a great character. And whereas the M in that film is the authority figure that Bond rubs up against, like Desmond is, in Never Say Never Again, Q is actually quite pally with Bond. And they get on quite well, and they sort of joke and spar with each other. So it's a different dynamic, but it's still an enjoyable one, and I'd love to see
great
more.
Scene.
Yeah, I think you do get a lot of his character in the small amount of time that he's there. He's a little bit obsessed with his. He's a bit of a hypochondriac. And he's always thinking the grass is green on the other side. He's really constantly wishing, I really should have. I'm in the wrong job. I'm stuck in the wrong job. I wish I was over there. So he's a little bit petty and a little bit jealous as well. And
Lucky bloody you.
Yeah, he's quite childish, and he's playing tricks on Bond right in front of him, and he's got a little bit of disregard for the whole thing. He picks stuff up and chucks it away, and he throws Bond's watch on the floor and smashes it. I mean, it's all there for comic relief, really, but you find out more about that Algernon character than you do about anything. Almost any film says about Desmond's Q. I mean, in one of them, you find out he's got some kids. Yeah. Made one of these for the kids last Christmas, and that makes you go, oh no, tell me more. I want to know more about. How is he married? Is he divorced? Has he got kids? I want to know more about that character, not in a way that gets in the way of the story of the film. I don't think it does in Never Say Never Again. It's just the small amount of time that you're with that character. You want to know a bit more about them other than how this works. And you never really get that much.
It's like Ben's. It's like Ben Wishaw's Q's got cats, hasn't he? And that's all you need. Just that little bit, that little snippet of information to their sort of life and their, what's going on when they're not in their current role. I love those sort of things. And
he says he's able to, create more damage while he's still in his pajamas before he's had his first cup of whatever it is, Earl Grey. On his laptop. So that puts images in your head of what these people are like when they're not at work. And I find that fascinating. And it doesn't get in the way too much of the story. But Desmond never really has any of that. All you really see is that he doesn't have a lot of time for Bond. And deep down we know he does. But he made such an impression. I'd have to go with Desmond.
And I think License to Kill was an outstanding film with him because he obviously got to show a bit more with his character and got to go out in the field properly with Bond, and that's fantastic. But long. Oh, bless him. We love Desmond. Okay, on to number 9 then, Dan. What do we think? Who is your favourite Moneypenny?
I would say Samantha Bond made a big impression in a very small, underwritten part. And I would love to have seen her do more. I would probably pick Samantha Bond. Yeah,
she's great. I think that opening segment in GoldenEye when they meet in the lift and she's dressed up, and that two-way dialogue is fantastic. You know, when she said she's she's on a date to the theatre and tells Bond that he's being too forward and has to one day make good on his innuendos and everything like that. I think it's great, and particularly after the sort of money pennies that we've had in the past of just being a bit too sort of melting in the eyes whenever that she sees him, and sometimes there isn't too much more to the character. But I think you're right. I think Samantha Bond's Moneypenny is great. I think Naomi Harris is done really well. It'd be interesting to see what else they do with her character. And Caroline Bliss obviously didn't really get enough screen time, I think, to show, and particularly in License to Kill, she's hardly in that one. But in Living Daylight, she only had a few scenes. And is it Pamela Salem? I think in Never Say Never Again, who again, similar thing, didn't really get a lot of screen time. But Lois, obviously, Dr. No through to A View to Kill. I remember reading something where it might have been Cubby Broccoli's biography, when the snow melts, and he mentioned that when they got to A View to Kill, he was looking around at all the cast and the crew in particular, the cast and the crew, and basically realised that it was only Lois and himself that were there from Dr. No.
Wow.
Which is pretty impressive. Perhaps there might have been one or two minor others, but in terms of like the main people on it, so I think just to show her longevity, that's pretty impressive.
I can't think of anyone else off the top of my head.
No, I think that was it. But I mean, for me, I think Samantha Bond's great, but for me, it is hard to look past Lois just because the amount of films, and I've mentioned this with Tom, I think she had different relationships with different Bond actors. I think with Sean, there was a definite flirtiness there where, you know, if he wasn't going to be done for illegal use of government property, they would certainly happily go away and spend some time together. Whereas I think the Roger Moneypenny was more of a brotherly, sisterly type relationship where they were more friends, but it was kind of fun for Moneypenny to find out about his adventures, and they would joke about, oh, where have you been? Oh, you know, just dropped out of a plane or whatever it is. So there was a slight dynamic twist between those two. But yeah, for me, I think Lois Maxwell is my number one, but I think Samantha Bond is definitely number two by quite some way. Yeah.
I think if it was a character that was given more to do, you'd have more to go on, wouldn't you? But it's such a tiny role. It's very difficult to pick out of the small amounts of information that you're given. Whereas someone like Felix Leiter, you've got so much more potential character information on screen. You've got, you know, what their favourite drinks are, and you know how up they are with on par with Bond with regards to. Like in Live and Let Die, for example, you know, he's saying, "Relax, James. This is Harlem. Is it Harlem, New Orleans? They're in New Orleans at that point, aren't they?
New Orleans. Yeah. He orders 2 Sazeracs. He's like,
"Yeah,
relax, James."
It's not much, but it's a little bit of character that makes you assume that he knows what he's talking about, and he's done this before, and you know he knows his drinks, and he knows his drinks better than Bond. So that tells you a little bit. That gives you something to grab hold of. With Moneypenny, you've got very, very little, I'm afraid, and that's just because the films don't. Well, the modern ones do, but the older ones don't treat her as a bigger character. She's just sort of background. So if you're going to choose
would David Hederson be your favourite Leiter?
He's certainly the one that you can pin the most on. You know, you get a rough idea of the sort of person he is based on the small amount of screen time he has. So for that, in that sense, he's the most enjoyable to watch, I think. I would go with David Hederson. What about you?
With David Hederson, I think it's an interesting one here. I think I'm going to choose one that not many people will choose as a number one Leiter. I think the ones I got to give a shout out to. I think Jack Lord, Dr. No, did great. I think he was really good. I think obviously Jeffrey Wright has done fantastic in the Daniel Craig's. Hederson, obviously the first first actor to portray Leiter in 2 films, and he's the one. If I think of a Leiter, I think maybe he's the one who I picture the most. But the one who is my favourite, I think, or if it's not, then it certainly has been for a long time, is Rick Van Nutter in Thunderball. Just because I think he and Connery have really, really good chemistry, as in being pals, as in, these are really, they're close mates. Like in Dr. No, obviously they only first met. In Goldfinger, in Diamonds, I don't really get the vibe that they're buddies. I think they kind of are more acquaintances. But I think with Rick Van Nutter, that's the first time you see him and Bond be really pally with each other. And I think the fact that they kind of go... the only thing is, you don't see him a lot. He doesn't do a huge amount in terms of backstory and stuff, so there is that lacking. But I just think I like seeing them two working together and the chemistry. And it's hard. I think if I'm being realistic, if I'm being honest with myself now, I would probably say that maybe my favourite is possibly Hederson, just because of the character is more there. But I have a lot of nostalgic love for the Rick Van Nutter Leiter.
Okay. He does say yes a lot, doesn't he, in that film? He doesn't really do very much. He's basically there to say, yes, James, that's right. That's a good idea. That's correct. We should do that. And then they go off and do it. He doesn't actually do anything. Yeah. But he's got a very good look, and he looks as if it was written with a bit more meat on the bone of the character. I think that would have been even better. But yeah, he's definitely a nice sort of... He's the one that looks like he should be the character.
Yeah, I think in Fleming's mind, if he could think of a Leiter visually, I think that's who he would go for, is a Rick Van Nutter.
They never quite got it right after that. It's been sort of all over the place. I really like Bernie Casey in Never Say Never Again. They're actually... I'm going to keep coming back to this because I'm a big flag waver for this film, and I think there is chemistry between Connery and Casey. I think it's quite easy to see that they've got some sort of backstory, that they have worked together before. They feel like, he calls him an old buddy, and how you doing, old buddy? And that it does feel like they've met several times before, and this is the guy that they've has shared Bond's adventures before. He can chuck.
Like
he can chuck.
He chucks the ball.
Exactly.
Yeah.
How many people can chuck a cricket ball at your own head and get away with it? They've got to be pretty pally to be able to do that. Because if he'd missed, you wouldn't go, oh, sorry. Oh, I'm so sorry. That really backfired. That you could never forgive someone who chucked a cricket ball at your head. It's like a stone.
I love the bit as well. I love the bit after Fatima Blush has died, and the police are trying to get into that underground area, and Leiter comes to the rescue, and then the next scene you just see Bond on the bicycle and Leiter doing the punches as they're going down the street, dressed in like just shorts and a vest or something like that. And I think that's a really nice little moment. I like that. And Never Say Never.
Completely unprepared.
No, I think Bernie Casey's great. He's yeah, exactly. And I think he's good in the final scenes as well, in the attack on Largo's men in the sort of temple area. I think he's good in that. So yeah, no, I think Bernie Casey's a good shout.
So that there's a scene,
sure.
The scene there where he's just as Fatima Blush is killed, and Bond says, "How long have you been there?" And he says, "Long enough." Long enough for what? To see how you handled the lady. You did rather well. And that suggests that he would have come in at any moment, had it not gone well, and it would have saved Bond's life. But the fact that he's prepared to let his best friend get right up to the last second of life before he does anything shows that that gives you some sort of information about his character. It shows you that he's he really knows Bond very, very well. He knows he's going to get out of it. He doesn't need his help. And it's a tiny
even though
little
Fatima Blush has a gun pointed between his legs.
Exactly, yeah. He knows he's going to get. He knows he's armed with that pen because he saw it being given to him earlier on in the film. So he knows he's going to be all right, really. Yeah, and it's a tiny little bit of character, but it's enough for you to understand why he did what he did, and it works, and it's quite funny as well. Yeah, so yeah, I would go somewhere between David Hederson and Bernie Casey.
Bernie Casey, I like that. Yeah, I like that. Excellent. Okay, so next up we have your favourite Bond ally. There are a lot to choose from.
Yeah. Do you know, I wish the one that makes me think, I wish we'd seen more of this character, because a lot of the allies don't make it past a certain point in the film, right? A lot of them, they sort of get bumped off quite early on. There was a sort of reoccurring thing. They thaw a little bit, and then they become a friend, and then they get bumped off. Yeah. And Saunders is the absolute epitome of that, isn't he? And I'd love to know more about Saunders. I'd love to know how his life, how his career would have changed now that Bond had pulled his own head out of his arse. He's sort of realised, actually, if you do play by the rules, you don't get anywhere. If you start bending the rules a little bit and going by your instinct, you probably get more, you achieve more. And yeah, he just goes, sod it, it's only my pension. Why not? Here you are. And then he's gone, and then you never see anymore. So the potential of Saunders makes me want to see what would have happened more. So I would say Saunders. Yes. What about you?
I think that's a fantastic show. Absolutely fantastic show. I think his character arc is one of the best of any Bond allies, because a lot of the time, the Bond allies, like generally, there might be a bit of a uncertainty going on if they haven't met before, and then obviously there's that respect, and then they're basically mates until the end and maybe help each other in the final scene if it's that sort of ally. But I think with Saunders, the frostiness and that they share at the start with, you know, section 26 paragraph 5 and need to know basis, all of this sort of stuff. And I love the way that when they go across the street, Bond instantly knows that Saunders has hardly any experience. Like, turn off the lights. Why? How can you even think to turn on the light? We're about to do a sniper shot and you're turning on the lights. Yeah. Come on, you know, he
hasn't even opened his goggles up.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So I like all of that stuff, and the fact that Saunders gets so pissed at Bond, and he's like, right, you know, I'm not going to leave it at that. I'm going to let M know about everything and what have you. And then there is that respect, obviously, when they meet up and he sees Bond with Cara and Bond sort of informs him about it. And then obviously the demise is so memorable. And it's only just at that point that the respect is being garnered between them, particularly from Saunders' point of view. And that smile that he gives Bond after he sort of thanks him, you think, you know, these guys are good, but you know what's going to happen. But yet you think, we've reached that perfect point, and then he's taken away, and then that just inflames the hatred in Bond when he sees that spioning balloon. That's completely what fuels that moment, is their relationship, the build up to their relationship. You know, with that sort of aggression and that anger wouldn't be anywhere as powerful if they hadn't had that sort of relationship beforehand. Yeah. So for me, I think Saunders is fantastic. I think he's great. In terms of some of the others, I think you've got the classic ones. You've got your Kerim Bey from Rush Your Love. I think the Connery and Pedro Armanda's relationship is fantastic. I think he's great. You've got Draco. I think Majesties. He's fantastic. I really like Colombo in Fiore's Only. He's another good one. And Sir Godfrey Tibbett as well. I just love watching Bond and Tibbett in Chateau Chantilly. You know, just playing the role of St. John Smythe and his valet. And I think Tibbett is right up there for me. I'd say he's more of a minor ally rather than like a full, one that a really sort of one that lasts a major ally, so to speak. But I think for me, Tibbitt's right up there. But Saunders, brilliant, absolutely great choice.
Tanaka as well is terrific. He's well acted. He's well written. He's there from beginning to end. You do learn a lot about his character. You learn a lot about Japanese culture through him as well. Not all of it's good. Some of it's interesting. Some of it's a little bit over the top. But he's fascinating. And again, you want to know more about him. And it would be great to see more of him. His own little spin-off. It would be nice to have seen the same actor at the same time. What did he get up to before Bond came along? What was the last big assignment that Tanaka worked on with Aki and with all of his friends and all of his colleagues? Be interesting to see the sort of
you just want a separate Aki film, don't you?
Well, yeah, I do, but it would be nice because there's something very cool about the fact that it is you're seeing another culture through Bond's eyes, through the film's eyes. You're seeing a different way of life, and the film itself was, it was touching upon the cultural differences between the West and the East, and you saw that through Bond's eyes. Oh, this is odd. I like it, but it's odd. It's not how we would do it, but it's fun. I might retire here, that sort of thing. Yeah. So I would love to know what they got up to before and after this. Do you think Tanaka would have just gone? Do you know what? I'm out now. I've blown up a volcano. I might as well just quit while I'm ahead, because it would just be going back to just signing his name on things after this, wouldn't it? And saving cats out of trees.
But again, he's another one who's brilliant just for the amount that he gets involved. Obviously, you mentioned earlier about the ninja stars, the cigarette rocket, the rocket guns. Obviously, he must be a trained ninja as well. He's got a whole army of trained ninjas, and he really, you'd never see M. Obviously, saying that, we see Mallory in Skyfall with a gun in the scene, but in terms of how much Tanaka gets involved, he's brilliant. So yeah, he is definitely one to mention as well. I just wanted to ask, obviously you brought up Never Say Never Again a few times today, and I hold my hand up. I am a fan. I do like the film. I'm not a fan of the final third, but up until that point I really do enjoy it. But my question for you is, what are your thoughts on Bond's ally being Nigel Small Fawcett?
That is yet more comedy authority figures, isn't it? He's probably the most blatant comedy authority figure, in that he doesn't really do very much other than he just appears to make you laugh a bit. The information that Bond gets from him could have just been written on a post-it note and stuck on the mirror in his hotel room, and it would have achieved the same amount plot-wise. But as it is, I can see that as being it's just, in a way, it's they're saying Rowan Atkinson is this new thing, let's cast him, it's a bit of fun. He's not really meant to be taken seriously at all. The fact that he's called Small Fawcett suggests that you're not really going to take him seriously. No, so yeah, I don't mind. In all of these films, I don't mind a bit where you have a little bit of fun and then you get on with it. It's when you stop the action to have the fun and then carry on again. Unfortunately, things like Octopussy would have been. I mean, I love Octopussy, but there are moments in it where you just think, why did you stop and do that joke? Just keep going. And that doesn't get in the way.
And I guess it would have been different if he was called Nigel Big Jock or something like that. I don't think it would have quite worked as well.
Large Tap, yes.
Yeah, Large Tap.
Nigel Large Tap. That sounds like Spinal Tap, doesn't it?
Yeah. Okay, on to the next one. Okay, this is a good one, Dan. Question number 12. What is your favourite Bond car or vehicle?
No question. It's got to. Oh, vehicle. Now, yes. Mm. Well, I'd say a space shuttle. I mean, Christ. How would you not want a
Which
space
one?
shuttle?
There are a few to choose from.
Oh, 6. No, 5.
Moonraker 6. You mean?
5 because it's got a
5's
laser.
got the laser.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great answer.
if it's a car, it's got to be the V8 Aston from the Living Daylights because it's beautiful. It's just beautiful. They're horrible things to drive, but they are beautiful cars to look at. And
have you had the pleasure of driving one?
I wouldn't say there was pleasure involved. No.
But you have driven one?
Around the block, yes.
What? How did that happen? Tell me about it. I didn't know this.
We made a couple of pilots for a TV channel that doesn't exist anymore called Men and Motors, and there was a car show in Bristol, and we just interviewed all the people that had all these cars, and there was a company in Bristol that allowed you to rent out classic cars. There was like a points system, so you would buy £1,000 would get you 1,000 points, and you could use that to hire a Mini Cooper for a week or a Lotus Esprit for an hour. You know, it cost you the same in points. And you could rent out, they had an Aston Martin Volante. It was blue, sort of dark blue. It was an automatic, which didn't help. I remember the gear stick being vertical, not gear stick, the handbrake being vertical. Yeah. And you had to sort of
strange.
You had to prise your fingers behind it to pull it away from the dashboard. It was very, very strange. And it was so sluggish. It was really heavy. But it was, it didn't matter that it was. I mean, I was used to driving. I had 4 Rover 100s in a row. The Metros. I had 4 Metros. I used cars
4
like
of
big,
them.
They were like big razors to me. If anything broke, I just tucked it away and got another one. So yeah, if you put me behind behind the wheel of a real car like that, I wouldn't know what to do. So to me, it felt like trying to steer a bull around. It just wasn't doing what I wanted. So I didn't really enjoy it. But I got the picture of me in it, so that's all that mattered, and it looks beautiful. Yeah,
I agree. I think that's a bit of an overlooked one. The V8 from Daylights. I think it's a cracking looking. I think out of the cars, visually, there's 2 others I really like. I really like the burnt copper Esprit Turbo from For Your Eyes Only. I think the look of that is fantastic. Obviously, the skis on the back with the snowy background in Cortina. I think it looks amazing. I really like the white Esprit Turbo as well, but I think there's something about that copper coloured one, which obviously that's the one that you see more in the film, and I think it's, for some reason, it suits Roger Moore. I really like it. Another one which I've grown to love a lot more. I mean, the DB5 goes without speaking, really, but the one which is really, I've kind of realised how beautiful a car it is the DBS from Majesty's. I think it's not too dissimilar to the V8 in a certain type of style, but I think the DBS, I really, really like it. In fact, it might possibly be my favourite looking Bond car, like purely based on looks. I think the Copper Esprit Turbo is brilliant, but I think that DBS from Majesty's, they look amazing. I remember going to a car show in Bewley with quite a few of the JBR lot a few years back, and it was really nice actually. We got Paul Weston to chat to us about his work on the Bond films and stuff, and they had loads of Aston Martins there. I can't remember if it was just an Aston Martin day or not. They obviously had a few other cars as well. Nice. And they had a V8 and they had a DBS and they had Paul McCartney's ex DB5 was there, and it had a plaque on the back seat saying used to belong to Paul McCartney or something like that, unless it was still his. I can't remember, but they had a DBS from Majesty's, and I really like it. I really, really like it. So vehicle wise, I think they're the ones that are kind of up my street. But in terms of car, vehicle wise, I've got a lot of love for the Aquastar jet from Octopussy. I think it's fantastic. The way that it just comes out of the horse box and it's so tiny. It's so tiny. And it's just got the wings come down and the tail wings come down and it's fast, and the way that it's used in that scene. I think that's my favourite car vehicle.
When I used to watch the films on VHS tape when I was younger, obviously the screen was a different shape. It was more square than it was in the cinema, or that it would be now on a Blu-ray. And there was a certain shot of that jet flying past where the camera could barely keep up with it, or whoever was operating the pan and scan thing could barely keep up with it as it was flying from one side of the screen to the other. And it looked so fast as it was just flying along through that canyon. And I remember going, "Wow, that is really, really fast. That is very, very impressive." Yeah, and it definitely made an impression, and it looked really cool, didn't it? Because if you're a Bond fan and your Bond is a 56-year-old man, it's going to be quite difficult for him to look that cool on screen, and yet they really did pull it off in that film. He does so many cool things and gets away with it. And that's definitely one of them. Yeah, okay, you have that. Yeah. That's great, and I'll have my space shuttle, and we'll see which one of us.
We'll see who wins.
See who gets there first.
It's like top trumps. I think your horsepower is slightly out horsepowered mine.
Well, I only get the shuttle. I don't get I don't get the booster rockets and all of that because I can't take off. So I'm either in space already.
You can take off. Can you take off as a plane? Obviously, it can land as a plane. Can it not take off as a plane? I know it takes off vertically to break out of the atmosphere, but I think they can take off as a plane just to fly, but not break the thing, or not. I don't know. Maybe not. That's a question. I guess so.
They'd have to test
all
it.
Our space shuttle lovers out there.
I don't know. Yeah. I know they did used to put them.
It can, anyway.
They transported them on the back of other planes, and that's
that's right.
How they would test, whether it could land or not, but whether or not it can actually take off. Maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Maybe it can't. But anyway, yours has got a laser, so you win. So there we go.
Yeah. Yeah. So does the car.
Okay, question 13 then. So it's a car. Actually, that's true. Question 13. Favorite Q branch gadget. This is a toughie.
Oh, bloody hell. Well, I mean, flipping egg. Nothing's jumping to mind. Wouldn't the jet count as a gadget?
It's tricky. Well, you're not allowed to use vehicles. I think if we're taking away vehicles and cars, just sort of gadgets, so to speak, non-vehicle related gadgets.
Okay. Does the sort of submarine crocodile, does that count as a vehicle?
You know what? I think that's the only thing that could probably cross the two sections because it must be a vehicle because it must move. Because I don't think it's Roger Moore with his hands in the crocodile feet doing, trying to do that for motion.
Well, it probably was on the set, but we are supposed to assume that is a submarine that he lies in, I assume. Yeah.
But then it doesn't go underneath. Doesn't go underneath, but it must have some sort of propulsion unit. But I would put that as a gadget. Yeah, I'd definitely let you have that as a gadget.
I'd have that, but it wouldn't be a crocodile.
If that's what you're going for,
it would be some other animal. I don't know, maybe a horse, something that you could climb inside, or a cow, and you just sort of disappear into the. No one would know which one was the cow and which one was a submarine, or which one was the real thing. Not a crocodile. It'd stand out a mile
until that bull comes along. The trouble is, when that bull comes along and sees you,
okay,
you've got to be very careful.
It would have to be a bull then. Yeah.
Yeah. That's good. That's a good one. I think there's so many to choose from. I think I remember Tom picking his favourite, which was the first one that came to my mind, which was the rebreather device from Thunderball. And that's one where I like sort of diving and snorkeling and free diving, that sort of stuff. And I think that's always been something that I thought, oh wow, I'd absolutely love to have that, even from when I was young, and even now I think it would be fantastic to have. Obviously a properly working device, not one where you have to hold your breath and then stick it in your mouth.
But it looks like it does work, doesn't it? It looks
great.
Such a great idea that it does immediately look like it should work, and you see it in the film with no sort of extra. There's no sort of extra effects needed. You just put that in your mouth, and the audience will make the rest up in their heads. So it does work really well for the film. Okay,
and I think another good one from that film is obviously the rocket belt jetpack. I guess that's another one that potentially crosses over from vehicle to gadget. I don't know, but that is obviously an absolute beauty as well, I think.
Did you see the Top Gear last month? They had a new Top Gear.
Yes, I did.
Bond car related.
Jetpack looked amazing, didn't it?
The modern jetpack. For people that have never seen these, I'm sure if you Google or look up on YouTube, you can find the most recent sort of Top Gear episode, which was a Bond car special. Aside from the Bond car bit, where they were racing each other around the track in half Renault 11s, which was worth watching just for that.
That was amazing.
They had a scene where someone was trying to race a jetpack up a hill in a car. So the jetpack itself is, oh my God, it's like a suit, and the arms, it's very Iron Man like. The arms
is very Iron Man.
Held downwards, and the air jets, the blasts come out of the sort of wrists, and so you wave your arms about, and that allows you to sort of steer yourself. That's a fantastic device. Oh, that's got to be in the next Bond film.
It's incredible, isn't it? Yeah, I think maybe for Christmas, see.
Yeah, there's water versions, isn't there? You might have seen people doing a similar sort of thing, sort of using jets of water and flying out over the sea.
With those ones, you get different because you get some that are kind of hooked up to a machine that pumps air down a pipe to. You can either get them on a board that rises out of the water, or the ones with like the thrusters that you can go along. But I think this particular one that we saw on Top Gear is probably the most maneuverable one I've seen.
Yeah,
and speed, it's super quick as well.
I don't know.
So I think that's the one that we should go for.
I don't know whether they fiddled around with it or not. But we know in the Thunderball one they said that they could only fly it for a minute, and then you run out of fuel. And it would be red hot for about an hour, and so you couldn't just stick it in the back of your car. But I don't know whether they cheated that or not on this Top Gear one, or whether these things really are now.
No, I think it's completely different.
So you could fly it for a lot longer.
Not a lot longer, because I think it did say on there. I think you have a maximum amount of time. I can't remember what they said now. It's not a huge amount of time. But it's better than 90 seconds. And also the device is totally different. So it's not like rocket fuel or whatever it is that they use for the rocket belt. But so I think it's a safer device as well in terms of what they use. But I think going back to Gadget, I think my favourite film for Gadgets is Thunderball. And I think I'm going to join Tommy and pick the rebreather as the one that I'd want the most of my favourite, with the jetpack not far behind sort of thing.
Again, going back to Never Say Never Again, the sort of the variation on the jetpack is those missiles that they climb inside.
I don't like those.
That's not a million miles away, though, is it? That's not a million miles away from what they were using in the Top Gear episode. No. It's sort of like...
actually, that's true. That's true.
They do look very similar.
It's like standing on a platform, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. That's some interesting choices there. If you were going to go with pre-title sequences, and then question 14 is the favourite pre-title sequence. Now, this is one you've been asking a lot of the guests on the podcast anyway. Now is your turn to answer. What would you say is your
Well, my
favourite?
answer is very difficult because I have two pre-titles that are far and away above all the others. One of them I think you're going to be extremely happy with, and the other one is one that I've mentioned already today. I mean, there are a lot of not. I think Goldfinger is great. You know, a mini movie. I think it's fantastic. I think. I mean, there are so many good ones, but the two that
Is there a Land Rover involved?
really stand out for me. There might be a Land Rover involved. In the first one, there's an Aquastar jet, and in the second one, there's a monkey and a Land Rover.
Nice.
Yeah. So, yeah, Octopussy and the Living Daylights for me. I find it very hard to determine which I prefer. I think the majority would obviously go with Daylights, and that's just incredible. I think the music cue to that is fantastic. You got the three agents. I love it when you see more than one 00. You got 002, 004, 007 going down Gibraltar. Obviously, that's a stunning location, and that whole Spionum and then the rogue agent and all this stuff happening, or the rogue assassin and all this stuff, and the car chase and the Land Rover chase. I think it's incredible. So I think the better one is Daylights, but I absolutely adore Octopussy's pre-titles with the Aquastar jet and the fact that his mission is to blow up this South American base. He gets caught out. You're a Toro tool. To Small World, and he thinks, oh well, that's it. He's taken away. He's never going to complete his mission. Does a whole parachute trick, and so they fly off the back of the Land Rover. Obviously, gets in the Aquastar jet. Was going to go away. They fire a missile, and he uses it to complete his mission, even though it's intended to kill him. And I think that is absolutely beautiful. I think the last line is cheesy as hell, which is classic Rog. But yeah. Yeah.
You can allow him that though. You can allow the film that, can't you? After such an amazingly tight action sequence, all of that would have been a lot longer in any other movie, and this is really, really short, and it's very fast, and it's incredibly satisfying seeing that building blow up. It's so cool, and you're allowing it to just have its own little bit of silliness at the end. It doesn't stop halfway through the action to have a silly bit. It deserves it. It sort of earns that laugh at the end. And also it's one of the earliest ones one of the last ones that doesn't have anything to do with the rest of the film. From
I think there's always a little connection. Yeah,
the microchip sort of then leads on, doesn't it? And Daylights with Smear Spinham, it leads on. I suppose Spy Who Loved Me as well leads on a little bit. I suppose a lot of them do, but that's one of the later ones which really has nothing to do with the rest of the story. It's great. It's really good. Okay, I would definitely pick Daylights, but there is a perverse pleasure in seeing a 56-year-old man destroying an entire Central American airbase.
Yeah, I feel it.
Which is exactly what General Orlov tries to do later on in the film. And again, Roger says, no, that's me. I'm the one that goes around destroying air bases. Thank you very much. I'm not letting you destroy this one. That's his bag. That's his thing.
Okay, then on to question 15. Agent Gayle, what is your favourite opening title sequence?
Oh, we're only halfway through this. I'm sorry to all the listeners who are going, what? Halfway through? When you say opening title, you mean the credits?
Yes, the credits. That's what I assume they mean.
The Maurice Binder. I love what Maurice Binder did. I absolutely adore what it's not Maurice, it's Maurice. Maurice would be spelled Morris. Maurice Binder did it was groundbreaking, obviously. But technically I don't think any of his are that. I mean, if you look at what Daniel Kleinman is doing now, they are jaw-dropping. They really are. But you can't. He wouldn't be doing that if Binder hadn't been doing it before. And
different technologies as well. Different
he had different tools, different
there's different
budgets
things available, isn't there?
and he was a perfectionist, and so he would keep going right to the last minute, and it would always be the last thing that was cut into the film. I would go for Robert Brownjohn's titles for From Russia with Love and Goldfinger. I think they are brilliant, and I really wish that he had done more. I would love to know how he would have progressed. He started off with words projected onto the body, and then he moved on to clips from the films projected onto the body. What would he have done next? How would it have moved on? I think visually they are absolutely brilliant. Very, very arresting to look at. So I would pick either of those two, I think.
Yeah. Wow, that's something that who often gets overlooked, Robert Brownjohn, and everyone obviously mentions Maurice Bender's titles, and he did Dr. No, and Dr. No's are great, but they are so different. If you're thinking about the sort of dot motif and then the dancing people with the coloured gels, that is not the same as the sort of sexiness, so to speak, of the belly dancer of From Russia with Love titles being projected. And then again, I think is it I've forgotten, it wasn't the girl who played Dink in Goldfinger.
Nolan?
She was also in the titles, wasn't she?
Margaret Nolan?
Margaret Nolan, that's it. Yes, that's the one. And so obviously having the parts of the film projected onto her, that then sets the base of having sort of these female figures. So it's not actually Maurice Binder who started the female thing. Obviously there is a dancing segment, but that is not what the rest of his titles are like. They're a lot more evocative, they're a lot more sort of erotic, and I think Brownjohn helped Maurice head in that direction through what he did in From Russia with Love and Goldfinger. So I think he definitely deserves a lot of credit. Yeah,
I had a go at projecting things myself. So I know how difficult it is, and it's great fun, but it's something that I think is so iconically related to Bond. It's so visually arresting. I would have to choose that, I think, over anything else. Although look at the stuff,
not just had a go.
Yeah, we just look at the stuff that Kleinman's doing.
I think you did a bang up job.
Well, it's quite easy to replicate. You just, you've got to find the right font and you've got to find the right colours. But after that, it's just, where do I get a belly dancer?
Did you happen to bump into one down the street? Or?
I was very lucky. Very, very lucky.
Yeah, there we go. But no, you're right. I think with Daniel Kleinman, he's done some incredible work. I think Casino Royale is outstanding. I love the titles for that. I think Skyfall ones as well. And when I first saw the Skyfall ones, I wasn't a fan because it was a bit too much in my face. I wasn't quite sure. But now I think I really like them. I think, even like the sort of The World Is Not Enough with the oil, and Tomorrow Never Dies with the sort of when you've got the sort of electric circuits and the change. I think they were very clever, and GoldenEye as well. I think the Maurice Binders, he's done some very classy ones. I think Spy is a very, very classy one that he does. But I think Majesty's, I really, really love the Majesty's titles. Obviously, you've got the callbacks through the sort of you've got the clock going backwards. You've got the hourglass. It's very sort of British in terms of the sort of royal almost with the color scheme and obviously I love the title song as well. I know it's a bit different, but
there's a simplicity to that, isn't there? To the Majesty's one, there's no sort of it doesn't change its theme too much. In some of the others, they are sort of perhaps unsure. They think, well, we should have this and we should have some of that. The ones that have a certain visual theme and they stick to it are I think, Binder's most effective. Live and Let Die, again. The theme is voodoo. Okay, what? How do you visually represent voodoo? Flames, skulls, death. Yeah. That's it. That'll do. And he sticks to that, and it works beautifully. Whereas some of the 80s ones, they were sort of, well, what's popular at the moment? Well, neon paint. Let's have some of that. Dayglow eyeliner and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's sort of a little bit all over the place. But yeah, you can't deny that without he definitely picked up the ball and ran with it, and he did more than anybody else. So you can't say that he didn't make an impression, because his stuff is brilliantly iconic.
Without a doubt, yeah, definitely. So, what about theme song then? For the next question, what would you say is your favourite Bond theme song?
I would say it was the Nobody Does It Better is the best song.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, I can give you that. But the answer is. I've got such a nostalgic connection to License to Kill. Oh, just thinking about it now. Just thinking about it, I can't hear that enough. I can't hear that song enough. With some of the others, if you've got any of the very powerful,
I used to have a tape of all the themes. It was from Doctor No through to For Your Eyes Only, and at the end of For Your Eyes Only, it would reprise the Bond theme. So if you put side A in and press play, you'd hear the Bond theme, and then when it stopped, you'd take the tape out, turn it over, press play, and it would be the Bond theme again. And you could just play it backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards, and you didn't have to bother with the rest, because the others, I think, after you've heard them a few times, that's fine, you know. Yeah, that'll do. I've had enough of that now. Thank you very much. With License to Kill, that never happens. It's so powerful, that song. I love it. I love it to pieces.
Have you heard the Cue the Music version, License to Kill?
Yes.
Kerry absolutely belts it out. I think their version is right up there.
They belt out everything though, don't they?
Well, that's true.
That is fantastic. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, well, isn't there a Blu-ray available? I think
there might possibly be a Blu-ray. I think there's a few various DVDs and Blu-rays that Cue the Music have done from lots of their recordings. They did the lockdown sessions, didn't they, last year? So there's loads of good listening for your Bond fan ears. So get in touch with Warren or Cue the Music to look for those, because there's a lot of good stuff going on there.
The stuff that they did for that under such ridiculous circumstances was amazing.
In a really short space of time as well. I
know. Yeah.
And cranked out absolute brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fantastic
Incredible
job.
Stuff.
Yeah, props to Warren and the gang.
Salute you.
Indeed. Theme song for me. Okay, so I think there are a few that have always been up there. I think Goldfinger, I've just loved the bombasticness and the fact that it's about, you know, it really reflects the character of Goldfinger and his obsession, which I love. I think I've always really liked Live and Let Die. I think the change in tempo in that is really strong, really hits home. The energy in it is fantastic. So that is always pleasing for me. I think You Know My Name is absolutely cracking. It's the energy. I really like the Bond songs that have energy. And
did you get that song when it first came out? Did it hit you immediately, or did it take a few listens?
I think I definitely didn't feel as amazed with it as I am now, but I definitely wasn't a hater. I was like, oh wow, this is really different, but I think I like it. And then there's like a couple more listeners I'm like, I really do like it. This is awesome. And the lyrics are great, but it's just the energy. I really like the Bond songs that I feel like inside me, and Live and Let Die does it, and another You Know My Name does it as well. I want to give a shout out, not a shout out, but I want to put my name to a song which gets a lot of stick in the Bond fan community.
I have one as well, and I'm wondering whether you're going to say the same. Okay,
well, my one is the one that follows You Know My Name. I really, really like Another Way to Die. I think it's great. Was that the one you were thinking of?
Yes, absolutely. I think it has. It can't do exactly the same as You Know My Name, but it gets close enough to it to have the same sort of dirty, gritty feel to it. The fact that was all recorded analog as well gives it this sort of grimy feel. You probably can't tell the difference, but there's something about the idea of doing it without any sort of digital recording or editing involved that makes it kind of sort of down and dirty. But also it's the first collaboration. It's the first what's the word I'm looking for when there's two people singing? That word has
duet.
Yeah, duet. It's the first Bond duet, and that really feels like that should have happened a lot earlier.
Definitely.
Whether or not people like what they're singing about is open to debate. But I love the instrumental version of it. I think it is wonderful.
Yeah. I just it's interesting that you feel the same way, because I know that's in a lot of people's sort of bottom 5 or whatever they might say, and a lot of people don't like it. I think it sounds so Bondian, like the opening start and well, there's loads to it. I mean, I'm a big fan. I wouldn't say it's not my favorite, but I'd put it above a lot of other Bond songs. Like, I really would. I think it's hard for me to choose. I think if I had to choose one, I would probably cheat and say the Majesty's Secret Service theme or the song over the titles, because that for me is I'm pretty much untouchable. But if I'm talking about a lyrical song, then I really like GoldenEye, and I really like Live and Let Die, and You Know My Name, and Another Way to Die. They'd be my 4 favourite lyrical Bond songs, I think.
It says one. You can only have one. So which is it going to be?
All right, I'm going Majesty's then. Majesty's.
Does it count as a song? It doesn't say song.
Oh, come on!
No, I'm sorry. I misread I misread. No, it says Bond. It says favorite Bond theme. Maybe we got it completely wrong. Maybe it means variation of the Bond theme, which is
007 theme or whatever.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Oh, it doesn't say
either
song.
Way,
so
I'm going to
I'll let you
Majesty's.
have it. It's all right.
No. Okay, thanks, Dan. I appreciate
If you do not ask specific questions, we cannot be held responsible for our misinterpretation of the answers. There you go.
Oh, yes, Solitaire. I love it.
Okay, so next is
so the
soundtracks.
next one then.
Yes.
Now we're talking.
It doesn't say soundtrack. It says piece of soundtrack. So it just means
music cue, single music cue.
Yeah.
This is tough. Think of how many hours of amazing music there has been. Like, I've got a few that come to mind straight away. I tell you what, one of them, which relates to something we've already mentioned, is Exercise at Gibraltar, Living Daylights. Yeah. That music cue that accompanies that pre-titles is fantastic. John Barry creates that sound of air, as they're falling through the sky. I even just saying it now, I can hear it in my head and visualize it, and it's giving me the chills. I think it's fantastic. And then obviously when Timothy whips his head round and we get to see Bond for the first time, and then you've got later on in the scene when the Bond theme kicks in with the car chase. I think that whole, it's like as soon as I can listen to the whole thing, because it's pretty much music start to finish, and picture that whole scene in my head, and I think that's fantastic. A few other ones that I like, Bond 77. I really dig a bit of Bee Gees Bond 77. I love that. I think 007 and Counting from Diamonds Are Forever is a exceptional cue. Exceptional. Yes. What Barry did with that cue, it's mesmeric. It's something that I could listen on loop non-stop, and I absolutely love 007 and Counting.
Do you know about the band? Do you know about the band Jakarta?
Oh, that rings a bell.
If you look up, I think it must have been. I've got my iTunes here open. I have to find it. Jakarta. The album is called Visions. They use. Actually, they might be called Jakarta. I always thought they were called Jakarta. They used little snippets of American Beauty as well throughout that album, the Thomas Newman score. But one of the tracks, I think, is called Home Away From You, track 10. It it quotes. It is actually 007 and counting, but
Really?
it's given a sort of slower, sort of more loungy kind of feel to it. I'm gonna have to play it now just to check that it. Just
I
to
know
check.
there's quite a few
No,
different
that's not it. It's not,
remixes
it's not.
of it. There's a song by Shadows.
I got it
Oh
wrong.
no, the song is called Shadows, I think, and that's a remix of 007 Counting. I think there's one by Grantby. Timber by Grantby uses the 007 and Counting theme in it, and that's fantastic as well.
Okay.
There's a few variations of it out there.
I got
Yeah,
this
I'll
completely
send them
wrong.
to you.
I got this completely wrong. The track is called
right.
The Other World. It's track 9
Ooh.
on this album called Visions by Jakarta, and the track is called The Other World, and it is just a loungy version of 007 and Counting, and it's wonderful.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I will check that out for sure. So what about you? Are there any sort of music cues that instantly come to mind when you think about it? Obviously there are.
Well, you'd get sick of
So
whichever
many.
one you had to listen to forever, wouldn't you? If you could only hear the one.
I don't think this question means you can only listen to one ever again. I think it's just
It's not-
your favourite piece of music?
Yeah, it's not Desert Island tracks.
No.
Do you know what I could do? The thing I should do is look up. I've got a Bond playlist on my iTunes, so I should look up the one that's been played the most. This would be intriguing.
That's a good idea.
Surprisingly, it's the James Bond theme. 41 play, only 41 plays. That's not very good, is it? The next one down is Bond Averts World War III from You Only Live Twice with 35.
Oh, You Only
plays.
Live Twice. Nice.
There you go.
I mean,
That's nice.
Space March as well from You Only Live
Yeah.
Twice. That's an amazing piece. Yeah.
Yeah. But I've got such a love.
So are you going to go for that one then?
No, I've got such a love for the electronic drum beat of the Living Daylights that I would pick Ice Chase over anything else.
Yeah.
I love it.
I love it. That synthesizer is just incredible.
Yeah. And there's a tiny little squeak. I don't know if you've heard it, if you know the track well enough, on the last sort of bar of the what would be the guitar bit in the Bond theme. If you listen to it closely, you hear one violin slightly out of tune. It just goes. And if you know the track well enough, you know exactly what point it's going to come in. And I have a love for that flaw. I understand that it went wrong, and either nobody heard it or John Barry went, fuck it, whatever, it's fine, leave it in. And flaws and all, I think it's a brilliant piece of music, and it was so invigorating listening to that in the cinema and going, oh wow, this is just, it felt so modern and so amazing, and it hasn't really dated in my ears. No. It might have in other
I agree.
people's.
I think it's a brilliant piece of music, that one.
Yeah.
Really, really works well with the scene that it's shown as well. So, yeah, brilliant. Okay,
I do love
Soundtracks
Bond 77.
there. Oh,
as Bond 77 appears in the film itself, I think that's got such an energy to it. It feels, when that kicks in, no matter what he's doing, it sounds amazing. For the soundtrack itself, it seems to have been re-recorded and slowed down a little bit, and it's still amazing and very funky. But there's something about the energy of the one that you hear in the movie.
Gets you going.
Which really does, yeah. It's incredible.
Yeah. Okay, so on to the next one then. We've got your favourite action sequence.
Wow.
You mentioned a pretty good one just then.
Yeah. There's something about the energy of that Lotus versus helicopter. There's something about that. The fact that the helicopter keeps disappearing and reappearing where you least expect it. The fact that the car looks like the dog's bollocks, and the Bond is so cool throughout the whole thing, and there's very little sort of daft humor getting in the way. and the bit with the truck he tries to overtake because he's having a missile thrown at him, and suddenly there's another truck coming towards him. There's a bit of suspense, and anything that makes you in the cinema or when you're watching it at home go, ah, shit, and then he gets away with it. Anything that happens in a film like that is always to be applauded. So yeah, I would say the whole Lotus Esprit sequence in The Spy Who Loved Me, just top notch.
And you've also got the bit with Jaws and the gang in the Ford after the
okay. So there's a Ford Cortina. I think in that Top Gear special they had a blue Ford Cortina in that as well, which I thought was very funny. And they had a Jaws lookalike as well. But that is the only bit that lets that down, is the fact that they're driving a Cortina, which clearly can't. It's they had to speed it up because it just wouldn't have gone that fast in real life. But aside from that, it's brilliant.
What do you think to the all those feathers and he still can't fly?
It's great.
I love it. I think it's a fantastic line.
Doesn't stop the film. It's over very quickly, and it's morbid. I love that kind of morbid humor, the dark humor. I think that works really well. And it's Bond just going, oh dear, never mind. Well, he's dead and I'm not, so it doesn't matter. Keep going. Yeah, that's fine. It works really well. Yeah. What about you?
I would say, apart from possibly the boat chase at the pre-titles of The World Is Not Enough. I would say this is possibly the longest action sequence in a Bond film. I suppose saying that, the Live and Let Die boat chase is very long as well, isn't it? If you take away those two boat chases, would you say the whole spy chase? Because you've got the sidecar on the motorbike, you've got Jaws and his lot, you've got Naomi in the helicopter, and that's quite a long stretch of film where it's one specific chase going through different sort of.
And then it goes underwater as well.
Up there.
And then it goes underwater.
And then it goes underwater,
on.
which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I actually put two scenes down as my favourite. Okay. I want to give a quick shout out as well to For Your Eyes Only with the whole ski, because that is another one that goes, from one thing to another with the ski chase, the down the bobsleigh, then you've got the motorcycles with the guns, and then you got Kriegel, got the ski jump lift and all that sort of thing. I think that's great. Obviously, similar theme, Majesty. Some of the ski chasing in that is top notch, absolutely cracking. But I wrote down two scenes for this. One of them was exactly the same as you mentioned, the spy chase, and the other one was the parkour chase in Casino Royale. I remember watching that for the first time on the big screen and being absolutely gobsmacked. I'm a big fan. I mean, I kind of did a little bit of parkour back in the day, and I like sort of jumping around and doing that sort of stuff. Probably a bit old for that now, but and I remember watching that and just that crane jump, and the whole chase is amazing. Going up the scaffold, not scaffolding, but the scaling and stuff, and then going up to the cranes and just the way that how the juxtaposition of Malaka's smooth style and finesse, slipping through things, sliding under things, hopping over things, Bond's brutish smashing through things, jumping onto things and stuff like that was great. And then it leads into that scene in the number 2 sort of embassy, which I think is brilliant as well, and how it ends with Bond blasting the thing. And I think that just pips it for me, just because of that parkour thing. I think is one of the best. It's the best foot chase that's ever been put to film, personally. Yeah. I think, and there's nothing more raw than to have a chase on feet. I mean, vehicle chases are brilliant, but just it's one man versus another, nothing else to do with technology or machinery or anything like that. And for me, Casino Royale parkour chase would be first, but the spy chase just behind it. The
music cue for the parkour chase could have been called Kick Bollock Scramble. and it would have summed it up perfectly, because that is just, they are hanging on by their fingernails throughout. That there's, that guy could have got away, Bond could have tripped, and it all would have been over. And, he never would have got him again. And that sums up Blunt Instrument as well, doesn't it? Fleming called Bond a blunt instrument, and Bond just running through a brick wall when the other guy was sort of tiptoeing over everything. That it visually sums up what a blunt instrument is. Okay, I completely understand why you choose that. But then, also The World Is Not Enough. My God, when that happened in the cinema, I remember this sigh of relief in the cinema when the credits came on, and someone behind me went, God, it hasn't even started yet. And we all felt like, oh, bloody hell, we're exhausted. And there was so much tension when that balloon, leading up to the balloon explosion. When the title started, you felt like, surely this is the end of the film. There's no way we haven't started yet. Yeah, and it was an incredible thing to experience in the cinema for the first time. All right, okay, we pick two good ones there. Yeah, if you're going to go with your favourite piece of set design.
Ooh, now there is a lot to choose from here. Obviously, you've got the master, the mercurial Ken Adam. Obviously, Peter Lamont has done a lot of amazing sets. Dennis Gassner did a few more recently, but for me, Ken Adam is the one that hits home for me. You've got so many amazing. Moonraker has loads of brilliant sets that he's done, but they're kind of, not one stands out because there's so many, but they're all good. A Spy, you've obviously got the La Paris tanker set, which is incredible. I think the two main ones for me, I think the volcano set, obviously from You Only Live Twice, is absolutely outstanding.
Can't have two. It's one.
No, I'm going to come back to one afterwards. But what I want to mention as well, obviously the Fort Knox set is incredible. But it's Dr. No is the one that I wanted to mention. Is because no budget, hardly any budget. He makes that the Dr. No room where Professor Dent goes in with a spider trap and a shadow on the wall. He does that little cell with the electric fence, which is not like, it's minuscule. And Dr. No's apartment, his sort of lavish living quarters, I absolutely adore that set. The nuclear reactor set I think is great, but for me I actually prefer Dr. No's living quarters. I think that set with the minnows pretending they're whales and everything, it just looks magnificent. And I've always thought, I'd love, maybe I can work that into my home one day. Maybe not the minnows pretending they're whales, but some of the other stuff.
With a TV screen or a projector, you could manage that with some sort of media device. I'm sure.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. So I definitely wanted to mention Dr. No, but I think ultimately I am going to go with it has to be the volcano set for me.
All right. Okay. Quick short answer then for me, it's the set that's behind me now in this picture, which is no good for anyone who's listening. It's M's office. M's office is utterly iconic, and it's rarely changed throughout those first 15 films. It rarely changes at all. I mean, 16 film, because it was in License to Kill. You barely saw it. The wooden panelled office that M uses, I think, is just. I would love to spend time on that set. Is just looking at all the silly little details that are around the room, and there's there's so much sort of iconography involved with that. It means so much to Bond fans seeing that, to the point where it was a real sort of relief to see it again in Skyfall.
And I was actually going to ask you about that. How did you feel when you saw it come back again? But what I loved about that set is every little picture, like the naval picture behind you, the model ship, everything like that, all relates to M, the character of M, his background, his interests, his hobbies, his career, and it's fantastic to see that and get that, and I think that's great. And seeing that those doors in Skyfall, that it just made you feel so good again, didn't it? Just to see it. And I was really lucky because I went to the Bradford Film Museum. It must have been, God, we're probably talking about 15 years ago now, and they had a James Bond segment going on, and they had a few cool things. They had the Neptune submarine from Few Eyes Only. They had they had like a section of the Golden Gate Bridge with a green screen behind where you could hang on to it and be like Max Soring going and it's got the San Francisco sort of green screen behind you as you're hanging on to the Golden Gate Bridge, which is great. But the other thing it had was M's office, and you could sit down on M's chair, you could pick up M's phone, you could look at his desk, and it had lots of the sort of iconography around, and I loved it. I think that was my favorite thing that day, and that's a fantastic choice, Dan. Absolutely brilliant choice.
Again, there's something about that which makes you want to just be. It's nostalgia, obviously, because you love the films and you relate that office with the start of the film and the start of the big adventure. So it holds potential. When you see that office, you're sort of reassured. Like when you hear the theme and you see the opening white dots, you're reassured, but you're excited because you know there's more to come. And it's sort of it's safe. Bond is safe when he's in that office, and as soon as he steps out, that's when all the shit hits the fan. So that is like his sort of where he saves the game, doesn't he? He goes back to the office and you hit save, and you know you're all right there. But as soon as you're out of the office, that's when it all starts to get very dangerous. So there's something about that wooden paneling which is very reassuring.
I love it. Brilliant stuff. Okay, next one then. We've got, what is your favourite piece of costume design?
Favorite piece. Pete and
would it
Matt
be Gustav Graves' robot suit from Die Another Day? Or?
It could be. Pete and Matt, if they're listening, who do the suits of Bond, they would be shouting "toweling robe" at me at the moment, and I would have to sort of push them aside and say, no, there are better things than that. I would probably go with flipping heck. That's tough. How do you narrow it all down? I absorbed the website, the suits of James Bond. I absorbed it because it was so full of detail.
It's a great site, that is.
Such nerdy detail that I absolutely loved it. And so I know that whatever I pick, there's going to be people that could write an essay underneath my answer saying, well, you clearly don't understand. I don't know. I mean, there's a certain when you see Connery in Goldfinger, not the suit that everyone is assuming that you'd pick, the one that he's wearing in the stud farm, although that is amazing. The suit that he's wearing in M's office, I think, is really nice. It's very simple. It's not like he's trying too hard. I quite like that, and it's the only film, if I remember right, it's the only film where he is wearing a silk knit tie as opposed to a grenadine tie, which is what Connery brought to the films. Whereas in Goldfinger, just for that one film, he was wearing what Fleming wrote, which was a black silk knit tie, and he's got a waistcoat that doesn't match the jacket. So he's trying a little bit, but he's not dressing up. He's not saying, "Hey, look at this amazing suit that I've just bought. Don't I look incredible?" He's turned up for work, It's his workwear, and he still looked amazing. Yeah, I'd go with that.
That's a great answer. I think for me, in terms of Bond, he doesn't look better in terms of dress than Goldfinger, because I like think of that iconic pre-title scene where he's got the dry suit, removes it with a white dinner jacket, red carnation. I mean, that's the coolest thing anyone has ever seen ever, literally.
It's funny, isn't it?
And then obviously
the red carnation has become a thing. And people would wear, but the duck on the head, no one has ever carried on wearing a duck on their head to the Albert Hall when they do the Bond.
I don't get that.
Tom was wearing a white jacket with a red carnation. He should have had a seagull on his head.
No. Maybe we can get him to do that next time.
I think he should just wear one all the time.
All the time, yeah.
Yeah,
probably.
just to make up for it.
Just do it. But yeah, no, that's fab. Obviously, you mentioned the 3-piece grey suit is great. The suit where he goes to see M. I think that's probably where he's at his best dressed. But in terms of my best piece of costume design, I think Mayday is her costumes and her outfits are fantastic. I think Fatima Blush, in terms of costume design, has some absolutely magnificent outfits.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it might even be Fatima Blush's outfits, because I think they're so out there but match her character so well. And likewise with Mayday as well. I think she has some brilliant outfits. That
her
I'm
hair
inclined
is
to go
different,
with
isn't
those
it?
two,
If
or
you
one of
notice,
those. Yes, her hair
Mayday's
changes.
hair never seems to stay the same. It's sort of different in every scene.
Yeah, it's very, very well done. So rather than a Bond piece of costume, I think I'm going to go with Mayday and or Fatima Blush.
That's cool. Nice. Okay, so location. We're on the home run for anybody that's desperate for a wee. Don't worry, I've only got a few more to do. So question 21 was favourite location.
Now, I think we can split this into ones that you visited and one that you want to visit that you haven't yet. So what would your answer be for those?
I have always wanted to go into a flotation tank and listen to John Barry in the dark with no gravity, just floating around, and just have the Space March in my ears and headphones. Anything spacey or just something something that is quite peaceful, melodic and peaceful. So that would be my way of being in space. So there's no gravity, you float around in water, and there's no light. All your senses are all over the place. So yeah, I'd love to go to space, but the fact that you'd have to train for like 10 years of your life, and be put in a vomit machine twice a day for 6 months, I just don't know if I could handle all of that. I'd just rather just float in a flotation tank and pretend that I'm in space. So I'd like to go to space. I think it would be incredible. I think if I could arrange for it,
a whole flotation tank.
Yeah, that can be. Yeah, I would love, when the time comes for me to be up in space. I know it is possible to scatter one's ashes in space. Old Scotty from Star Trek, part of a tiny little smidgy bit of him was sent into space, and it's out there now somewhere. So that it's a hell of a waste of energy and fuel and Earth's resources. But if we started, and it's always litter, it's just space litter, isn't it? Chucking dead bodies into space. But I would love, ultimately, if I knew I was up there at the end of the day, that would be quite cool.
Yeah, that sounds that's a good one. I think beat that. Well, I don't know if that's possible. What about location? Have you visited any Bond locations? Obviously, you've been around London and all that.
Yeah, we did loads, didn't we? A couple of years ago, we did loads.
Stoner Park.
I got such
that was incredible. We
I got
made
a
that awesome
stoner-
video as well.
I got a stoner boner. It was so good. It was so good there. It looks exactly the same as it does in the film, and they don't mind people coming to have a look around. And Living Daylights is my favourite film, so it is just beautiful walking around that driveway. I've actually got a couple of tiny handfuls of gravel, which I keep on my shelf, so that I can look at them and go, oh, Timothy Dalton probably trod on them. I really like just the beauty of the park. It's absolutely beautiful. The fact that it hasn't changed. They haven't repainted it like Shrublands in Thunderball, which is now the most garish colour.
Why did they choose that? I don't know. It's horrible.
Yeah, it looks beautiful. I would say that.
Yeah.
But what about you? Because you've been to thousands of them. Not only that, you've actually arranged days where, listeners get to go to these events, and not just in the UK. You've been all over Europe. So you've had more experience of them.
I think in terms of my favourite trip, I mean, well, up until last summer or the summer before. The summer 2 years ago, it would have been we did a trip called Chateau Hand, where we visited the chateaus from, I think the first one was A View to a Kill, and then we did Thunderball, and then we did Moonraker's Chateau, and it was only a few days, so we only spent a few hours in each, but it was fantastic. And again, obviously these locations have not changed one bit, and you do feel you're a bit like Zorin wandering around Chateau Chantilly, or Drax around Vaux-le-Vicomte, and then you've got Chateau Denay, and we got to go onto the roof as well, and I got to do the part where Connery ran around that corner to the jetpack, and we sort of recreated that, and that was unbelievable, because that felt so good.
Is that something that a lot of people would have had a chance to do, or is that something that you arranged specifically?
We arranged specifically, so you can go to the chateau, but they're very strict about what you can do, what rooms you can go in. You're not meant to take photography or anything like this, but we managed to arrange it so we could go onto the roof where that section was in advance, which was extremely helpful. So we had quite a few of us there, and it was amazing. It was so good, and just to do that and to see that bit where he runs around the corner was fantastic. So that as a trip was right up there, but we were really, really fortunate, a load of us, to go to the Majesty's 50th anniversary, and we went to loads of different amazing locations that week. But I think Peace Gloria, out of everywhere that I've been, is the one where it's just incredible. And everything around it, everything around Murin and Lauterbrunnen and everything is it's unforgettable, really. So that would be my number one that I've been to. If COVID had not happened, I would have visited James Bond Island in December of last year. Unfortunately, that has been pushed back, but hopefully, I don't think it will be in place this year, but hopefully next year we'll get to see that. But as much as I'd love to see that, and I definitely will go, I think for me, the number one place I'd like to visit is Jamaica. To go to GoldenEye, to go to all the locations from like Dr. No, the really old school ones, and the ones from Live and Let Die. Obviously, I know there's going to be some new ones in the new film. That is something that I know. But Jamaica or the Bahamas, but I think Jamaica just pips it because there's a few more films, and it's where it all began. And going to GoldenEye would be incredible. So yeah,
that's a very good shout. Yeah, definitely. Okay. Okay then. So 22 favorite Bond kill.
Yeah. This is a tricky one.
Who wrote these? I'd love to know who came up with these. They spelt lighter wrong.
Yeah, well, half of them are from the quick fire questions from JBR, and then the other half, I'm not sure who wrote them. Favorite kill is tricky because you've got some where obviously that fight with Red Grant and the way that he turns the table on him with his own wristwatch, that's fantastic. You've got the shocking with the Odd Job, he's obviously with the electrocutes him. You got obviously the shocking at the start of Goldfinger as well. There are a lot. Obviously, a lot of people say about Electra King being shot, one of the best Brosnan moments. That's an interesting one. I haven't really thought about this one. Is there any that is coming to mind for you? Off the cuff.
The ones that are a total relief.
Professor
The
Dent,
ones,
I suppose.
yes, yeah. The ones that when it's over, you go, oh, thank God for that, in a good way, not like oh thank God for that. They're ones where Bond is in such peril that the moment he removes that threat, he's safe again, and then it gives you that relief, that comfort. I think it would have to be Necros, because as we've said before, a Bond, from the moment he gets into that plane, the scriptwriters play this horrible trick on Bond in The Living Daylights, where they pile danger upon danger upon danger upon danger on top of him, and he's never safe really until they are in that Jeep at the end on their way to Karachi, to a restaurant. Because just when he sorts out one problem, another one appears. And after he sorted that one out, another one appears. So if you watch that sequence, you see him get on a plane. He can't get off the plane after setting the bomb because people are now shooting at him. He has to escape in the plane. Kara tries to get on and almost ruins the whole thing. At that point, Necros jumps on. And then they almost avoid another plane, and then they have to defuse a bomb, but he can't defuse the bomb because Necros is trying to strangle him. He throws him out the thing, and then he forgets that there's a bomb, and then he only switches it off at the last second, and then he goes to tell Kara everything's okay, and they're flying towards a mountain, and then after that the plane's been shot at and it's losing fuel, so they have to land it somewhere, but they can't. There's nowhere to land, and it just on and on and on, and it's wonderful. So I think the moment he snips away the shoelaces and makes
so
Necros,
and it takes three goes, doesn't it?
Yeah, and he's the guy that killed Saunders, and he felt that death of Saunders. He really did feel, how can you kill someone like that who I actually quite liked? It was like his revenge. It was his sort of that's for 009. It's the equivalent of that, isn't it? It's I'm not having any more of you. Thank you very much. You can sod off. And yeah, that I think the moment he snips the shoelace, that is the best kill, and that he deserved it. That character deserved it. Yeah.
I think that's a fantastic shout, and what a sort of fight. That was an action set piece that we didn't mention earlier, and that is an absolute belter. Like, obviously you mentioned about the bomb and everything as well, and you can see they're almost hitting the top of the plane, and it's all happening for real, and it's brilliant. And again, it's another one out of all the Grant replicas. I think Necros is my favourite out of all the others, because he's intelligent. He has different accents. He uses the Walkman. He's got the exploding milk bottles, which are amazing. He's a clever cat sort of thing. So yeah, he's great. So yeah, that's fantastic. I'm struggling to determine what mine would be. I think the Red Grant one I like, Odd Job I like. I do like the Electra King shot, which is good. I think it's true. It is hard, isn't it? It's a very difficult question. I think I'm going to stick with my original thought, which was going to be Professor Dent, just because the way he is so calm, so cool. He's setting up. He's playing solitaire while he's waiting. He sets up the bed with the old pillow trick. He knows what's going to happen. He knows Miss Toro was setting him up. He knows Professor Dent's coming, or at least he's got a really strong hunch he's gonna turn up, and just the way that he lets Dent unloads, all of his bullets, and the way that he is being not cocky, but he just knows that Dent hasn't got a chance, and the way that he allows Dent to bring the gun closer towards him all the time. He's being so nonchalant. He's looking away, looking for his match or his cigarette lighter or whatever to light his cigarette, and then turns around and Dent has it, and Dent thinks he's got his number, and then he does the massive, that's a Smith & Wesson. You've had your 6. And then that second one as well. For me, that is my favourite, yeah.
That's like the dice in Octopussy, isn't it? You'd have to be so sure of yourself to be able to get away with that, to know that he didn't have a different gun, one that had more bullets than you'd expected. That's you'd have to be very clever to be that relaxed in that situation. But yeah, that tells you a lot about Bond, doesn't it?
Definitely.
Okay, I completely agree that
It certainly does.
That's a very key moment.
Okay, three more questions to go.
Would that also count then as question 23, which is your favourite quip?
Well, I mean, it's got to be up there, I suppose. There's a lot of good ones. I think Dr. No has some belters. I think they're on their way to a funeral. Well, I really like the other one before. He said to Sergeant, make sure he doesn't get away, and then he's obviously. Yeah, he's obviously taken the cyanide. I think that's so subtle, so well done by Connery. I love the way he delivers that line, and that's one that I don't think gets as much credit as potentially it deserves. So yeah, I think there are a lot of fantastic quips. Roger has plenty in his tenure. He has some really, really good ones. What sort of ones are coming to mind for you? Do you have any particular favourites?
Do you have lines of dialogue in your life that have come from Bond films that you say in real life situations? And do you say them to yourself, or do you say them out loud so that other people will hear them and then go, what does that mean?
No, if I can, a bit of each, but if I can fit a piece of dialogue into conversation without the other person knowing, although my better half tends to realise that half the stuff I say is dialogue quotes from films, so I can't get away with it as much these days. But to other sort of to mates or random people, and I manage to get a line in, it makes me feel so good inside. It's just nice, so excited. I'm like, I just know I've got that line down, and like sometimes you can say it and it doesn't quite work just because of the context of the situation. But if it's set up for you and you know it's set up even before you said the line, but the anticipation is there and the excitement is there, and you deliver it, you just feel like this warm glow. It's like this. It just feels amazing. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. I think there are times when you can reproduce some of these quips and it backfires terribly, either because it doesn't work and people go, you're just saying stuff from films, aren't you? Or whether or not it's funny to them is irrelevant because it's funny to you, that sort of thing. So I think the quips are the ones that make people go, you're trying to be funny. Whereas the lines of dialogue that aren't quips, you can weave those into everyday situations and you can get away with it. But if it's something like, salt corrosion,
Christmas only comes once a year.
Yeah, if it's really specific, you're very rare. It's very rare that you're going to get a chance to do that. So I don't know. Quip wise, it would.
Salt corrosion's all right. In the winter, you could use that a lot, Dan.
Yeah, but it's not. It's not funny, is it?
No, that's the other side. I tell you, one of the ones that I always smile at is Moonraker with the assassin in the tree and the pheasants and poof, you missed Mr. Bond. Did I? The delivery is so good, and it's clever and it works, and it's funny without being stupid funny, and I think that's an absolute belter of a line.
I think Tom Mankiewicz was a terrific dialogue writer, and looking at the bits of The Golden Gun the other night, there are odd lines of dialogue in that just because of the way they are presented, they are kind of thrown away slightly. He's talking about the golden bullet, and he says, "Are you saying there's no way of tracing it? You've no idea what it went through to get here," which is a great line when you consider where it's actually been. And it's sort of thrown away slightly because there's no sort of giant close-up of Roger saying that line. In that one, he also he asks about he asks the belly dancer about Bill Fairbanks. She says, "I was in his arms, my eyes were closed," and he just mutters, "Well, at least he died happy," which is a lovely line because you know what he was up to when it happened. But later on in that film, there was a bit where he points a loaded gun at a man's penis and threatens to blow it off if he doesn't say what he wants him to hear. And he says, "Speak or forever hold your peace," which is beautiful. It's a beautiful line of dialogue. It is so good, and it's not thrown away. It's, you know, you're looking right at Roger as he says it, and you understand what he's talking about, having to carry his bell end in a jar for the rest of his life. I think that's
Paul
probably
Lazar.
Paul Lazar in his penis jar. I would go with that because it's so so perverse. I love it.
Yeah, that's an amazing one. And also he has some beauties in Diamonds with the providing the collars and cuffs match. That's another beauty that he was very witty. I did like the Mankiewicz dialogue. He brought some absolute sparklers to the table. I think that Golden Gun one is fantastic. Yeah, right up there.
Well, whether that was him or not, I don't know, because he did work on the script, but it does sound like his sort of thing. Yeah,
I think it would be a Mankiewicz one, definitely. Okay, so
he worked on other ones
questions.
as well. He worked on some of the later films as well. He worked on Spy and Moonraker, uncredited. So yeah, who knows which ones were his. But yeah, that holds a special place for me. So yes, next one.
Okay, so what is your favourite Bond novel or non-fiction Bond book?
I said before I did my GCSE English language exam with a paperback copy of Moonraker in my trouser pocket. It was pressed up against my thigh as I did it because I was reading it at the time, and I just sort of shoved that in there. And I just scraped through GCSE English, so I kind of think that through osmosis I absorbed a tiny little bit of Fleming's ability and inherent racism, probably.
Hopefully that didn't show too much.
No, I don't think so. I like Moonraker. It is a very interesting book because it's so different to all the others. That for the novels, I think it's intriguing. But non-fiction, I guess it would have to be the Raymond Benson Bedside Companion because it taught me everything. It was all that information was there, and
do you still have it?
Oh yeah. I still don't think I've absorbed all of it because it's so much information in one book, and it stops halfway through what we now know as the Bond film series. It goes from 1953 to 1988. It can't review License to Kill. It says they're about to make another one.
Yeah.
So imagine what the second part of that would contain. It was so much. Yeah. But there have been so many books. AJ and Matthew wrote one, Some Kind of Hero, which is like a bloody doorstep. It's outrageous, the amount of information. I mean, you've had so many people on JBR recently that have written astonishing non-fiction Bond books.
Covering every aspect of Bond as well.
Every single, yes. It's amazing how much detail there is in some of these. This is a golden era for fans writing books about Bond. It's incredible the amount of stuff that's coming out. I can't even begin to name them all because there's been so many. But I'd have to go back to the one that
kicked
it all off for me, and that was the Raymond Benson Bedside Companion. Yeah, James Bond Bedside Companion.
Fantastic. Well, for me, in terms of novels, I have not read the Fleming novels, for quite some time, and I haven't read as many of the Gardners or Benson novels either. I've read the Horowitz. Well, I've read all the continuation novels, and Forever and a Day I'm a big fan of. I really like Forever and a Day. Out of the Fleming ones, I'm the same as you. I think Moonraker. I also really like From Russia with Love. Moonraker and From Russia with Love are my two favourite Fleming novels. But I feel like I can't say Moonraker now because that was the one that I was going to say. But you've sort of nabbed that one. So, but I might stick with it anyway. Who cares? Yeah, okay. I'm going to go Moonraker as well. So there we are. Non-fiction. I had this encyclopedia. It's called the James Bond Encyclopedia, which just after License to Kill came out, I've still got it in my bookshelf over there. So I had it when I was 9 years old, and it's a sort of thing where they had little word searches in there. They had little quizzes. It talked you through the films. Not all of them, just certain specific ones, and the characters, and it was basically for someone of my age at the time, and I still have it. And for nostalgia value, that is one that I'll always hold a place in my heart for. And
I don't know
aside
that one.
from that, I mean, again, I'm looking at my. I tell you what, if you, it's a bit hard now because we're recording, but I should have brought it across. Do you want me to quickly go and grab it? Do you want to keep them entertained, or we can put a little edit here?
It's not that one.
If we put a little edit here, I'll just. No, it's not. Give me 2 seconds. Maybe it's not called that. 2 seconds.
Okay. Edit. Must write down edit. 253.
Do you mind making a note of the time?
Yeah, done it.
I've got it now. Okay, just going to quick note. Sorry. Okay, I'll just start from the top. Okay, and for non-fiction, my favourite is, for nostalgia reasons, it's the James Bond 007 fact file, which I got when I must have been 9 or 10, and it was just after License to Kill came out. And it's a sort of book where it had all these sort of word searches and quizzes, and it didn't go through every film. It had parts on some of the films. And in fact, this is what it looked like for anyone that's watching on YouTube. The 007 James Bond fact file.
Yeah.
And I absolutely adored it. And just looking at it now is bringing back like loads of good memories. And it's the sort of thing.
So I never got that one because that to me it looked like a. Sorry to talk over you there. It looked to me at the time like an annual, sort of a kid's annual. So I felt I was too old for it, so I never bothered.
There's your favourite car.
Oh mate, I want that. I'm gonna have to get it now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it cost £3.99 back in the day, so you could probably pick it up for 50p. But for nostalgia reasons, that's definitely up there. But in terms of the other non-fictions, you got to give a shout out for On the Track to 007 and the Bond Location book. That's one which I do sort of, whenever I'm going on holiday somewhere at an appropriate place, which is generally something to do with Bond, I'll always take it with me. And that's a nice companion to have with you, a nice travel companion.
Right.
So yeah, but like you said, there's so many out there, and there's so many fantastic books. Particularly non-fiction. I think I've read more non-fiction books on Bond than fiction, really.
There is one that Kingsley Amis wrote just after You Only Live Twice. So it was after Fleming had died, but before The Man with the Golden Gun had come out, called the James Bond Dossier, which is probably the first book of its kind. There might have been others actually around the same time, but that was a big one because it picked apart Fleming's writings and subject by subject, book by book, read between the lines, assumed certain things, and analysed and criticised Bond and his lifestyle and his personality. And it's a tiny little paperback. It's thinner than some of the actual Fleming novels, but that's definitely worth a read. Just because it's so packed, it's so dense, full of information, it's definitely worth a read, and it's one of the first of its kind. And I think Raymond Benson was quite he did pick up on that, and that's kind of what his book was like. It was that, but expanded, and including the films and including all the other aspects of Bond as well. But it was analysing it bit by bit, and picking it apart and presenting it as if it was, some sort of serious subject matter rather than just a bit of sort of lightweight entertainment, which is what Bond is really supposed to be. So that's a very good book to read. James Bond Dossier by Kingsley Amis.
Okay, so final question of the James Bond 25-day challenge is now. I'll intrigued to know your answer to this one. Who is the kindest member of the fan base that you've interacted with?
Oh, blimey.
Everyone's nice, isn't it? It's a bit of a silly question, this one, because everyone's nice in the JBR community.
Do you think that was whoever wrote this sort of fishing for compliments?
I think that maybe. We need to find out who is the person who started this off.
Yeah. The kindest member of the fan base that has the initials CW.
Carlos from Wilmsburg.
Oh my God. Well, I've got. I've spoken to more nice people than unnice people, because the unnice ones you kind of don't really get involved with in the first place.
Yeah.
Well, look. Okay, I'm going to say yourself and Tom, because you were very, very nice to let me get involved in James Bond Radio in the first place. There you go. Okay. But there also at the same level, anybody who's ever spoken to me at any length on Twitter about anything Bond related, and there are so many people, and they're all amazing.
Do you know what? It's interesting. This question has come up because I saw a few messages from on the JBR Facebook community group page, and there were quite a few messages early on today just saying that from people how they appreciated the sort of openness that the community has in terms of people with different opinions can feel like they can voice their opinions without being shut down, which is a big thing. I think it's an important thing in life in general, not let alone just talk about Bond. In life in general, it should be that way. But it's something that sometimes it's easy to forget about, that not every sort of social media outlet allows that to happen, or not allows, or people are berated sometimes, and hopefully that doesn't happen with us, and I haven't noticed it in particular with us, and I think that's really hopefully something that will continue. But that equally, that shows you how nice everyone is, because no one is doing that. So in a way, it's everyone that's involved is a kind member of the fan base. It's a strange question, but I just say everyone really.
At the end, I would prefer question 25 to be the best penis-based one-liner in a Bond film, because there's so many of them.
Yeah, I think you already claimed that one with your.
Well, there's all the others as well, isn't there? There's the "Don't Get Soap in My Eye," and
that's a good one. Yeah, that is.
He went off half-cocked, and all of that. I'm an early riser myself. That sort of stuff.
Oh,
there's
Rogers.
so many of them.
Keeping the British end up.
Yeah. Oh, that's probably a better question.
Oh, I tell you what though, one of the best lines in the whole series, I think it has to be Q's in Moonraker at the end. What's 007 doing? I think he's attempting re-entry, sir. That's a beauty when you know that Desmond's not even looking. He doesn't know what Bond is up to, and I think that's a good place to finish on. What do you think?
Yes, definitely. I like that. Again, the Bond films of the 70s and 80s, you allow them, after all the madness, to have that slightly reassuring, silly moment at the end, and that one is a beauty.
Yeah, without a doubt. Well, I can't believe that this episode is been quite a behemoth, hasn't it, Dan? But I've really enjoyed it. It's been good because there's some of these questions that I think about, and I think lots of people think about quite a lot. And there are some of these questions which perhaps we don't often think about, or maybe haven't even thought about at all. So it has been good to kind of go through these things, and obviously to share it with you and get your opinions, because there were one or two which I thought would be what they were, but equally there were quite a few that you mentioned which I didn't know about. So it's interesting to learn about it all.
It would be interesting to hear other people's own. I mean, it's not something you can just tweet, is it? Because you'd have to send off so much information. You'd never fit it on one particular tweet. But there's more potential there for other episodes, I think, because there's plenty of other people involved in James Bond Radio who would all have plenty of interesting things to say, including based on those same 25 questions and the 26th one that we just invented about penises.
That we just invented. Although saying that, you mentioned that people could be saying lots. Equally, a podcast could have been over in 2 minutes if you just had one word answers and it was like, right, see you later.
That was never going to happen with me, though, was it? Let's face it.
Maybe not, but perhaps on Facebook when we post this out, if everyone who hasn't, or even if you have but want to post it again, if you want to post your answers to your own 25-day James Bond challenge, but obviously just hit us with one word answers. It'd be really interesting to see what common ones come up, and what even more intriguing would be, the sort of curveball answers, the ones that we might not be expecting, and see what comes up there.
We didn't mention David Niven once. We didn't mention any of Casino Royale 67, which has an amazing soundtrack. Oh,
yes, indeed.
It has lines in it that were actually borrowed in Octopussy. Poison pen letter joke is used again in Octopussy. There's another one as well, isn't there? There's another joke that Octopussy reused. I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. But it's got a lot in that film to enjoy. There's probably too much to enjoy for one sitting. But that deserves. If there was a 27th question, what's the most bizarre Bond film? Straight away, that's the one, isn't it?
I think so. Is it? Have you any problems keeping it up? Is that in there? That sounds like it should be in there, even if it's not in there. It's probably not, but I'm pretty sure that would be. If they'd thought of it, that would have been on the script as well.
I can't remember what it is, but I have. When I was watching it the last time I saw it, it jumped out at me.
It'll come to me. Have a look next time. Yeah,
everyone knows what it is. The scream. Everyone has seen that film thousands of times, and they were screaming the answer at their phones.
I'm sure they have. All right. Well, it's been a pleasure having you on, Dan. It's been great to go through it all. And
thank you very much. And nice to talk to you again.
Good to be back as well. It's been a while, and the thing that I'm really looking forward to is when we can actually get a proper in-person JBR meetup again. Have a good in-person sort of chat about Bond, and hopefully throw in a location or two, and get back to a sense of normality would be pretty cool.
Yeah, that would be lovely. It will happen. I just don't know when. But fingers crossed.
No. Indeed. Yes, fingers crossed. Well, thanks everyone for listening. Hope you enjoyed today's show. And as usual, James Bond Radio will be back next week. And until then, I've been Chris Wright.
I've been special guest Dan Gayle. I get the and.
You do. You get the and. You could have also had the amazing Dan Gayle, but special guest works as well.
That'll be for the sequel.
That is for the sequel. Yeah. All right, then. Well, take care, everyone, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Hope you enjoyed the show. Good night.